Assalamu alaikum, welcome to episode 33 of Freshly Ground. Sam is back.
Assalamu
Sam is back. Sam is back. No, you're good. No, go on. Go on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bro, I miss you so much. I miss you too much, man.
Don't worry, I'm here.
Alhamdulillah. Guys, we have such an exciting episode for you. But before we go into the episode, I want to talk about who this episode is brought to you by. Your boy was drinking some coffee from the old 59. That's 50_NINE on Instagram. 59 Stanhope Road in St Albans. I was drinking some fresh. No, the coffee wasn't actually. Let's not get into that. 59.
From 59. How was it?
59 coffee and juice bar was amazing. I love. It's actually, as I always say, and I'm not allowed to lie, it's one of my favorite coffee shops. It's a coffee shop, fresh juices, fresh snacks, fresh food. 59 Stanhope Road. If you're in Hertfordshire, if you're near Hertfordshire, if you're in the UK, come down. In fact, Sam's had some amazing people come from all over the world to just check out 59, and they've quoted Freshly Grounded, and they've got themselves some freebies. So come down, quote Freshly Grounded, and you'll get yourself some freebies. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Also brought to you by Zaha. IZAHA.com, the most fire Arabic caps in the game. I'm wearing one right now. I'm wearing one that says Ikhwa, which means, it can mean brothers, it can mean brotherhood. And chuck in the code word Freshly Grounded and you get 20% off your cart. Lastly, brought to you by Flavor, FLAVR.co, Flavor.co, your one-stop shop for social media, content creation, branding, iPhone applications, website design. Check out flavor.co, FLAVR.co. And also, Sam, what if the people here want to sponsor Freshly Grounded?
You jump on the Freshly Grounded website.
You're going to want to head over to freshlygrounded.com, click on sponsorships at the top, or go to freshlygrounded.com/partner, and you can see all of our stats, all our information, and you get sent a pricing list as well. There's a contact form at the bottom. Head over, support the movement. And lastly but not least, if you want to help towards a cause, you want to donate to Freshly Grounded, head over to freshlygrounded.com/donate. What do we talk about in this episode, Sam?
Blue Planet 2.
Blue Planet. We talk about a bit of the old boxing.
What makes you a lad?
What makes me a lad? We talk about atheism.
Monsters, myths and legends.
We got Hamza Tzortzis in the building. Yeah. Listen, guys, it's a very, very, very amazing episode. I loved shooting it. Without any further ado, let's get into episode 33.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
After that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
We're live on air. We're not live, but we started. The door's not shut. That's a pet peeve.
Sorry, I didn't do my hair yet. I'm supposed to get a haircut.
It's okay, but I was meant to get a haircut as well, but you know, is what it is.
I got a haircut, but I'm wearing a hat.
Can I just say that last week was such a big week thing for me because I had 2 podcasts to record. I had an event I was doing at Essex University the next day, and I had Hamza coming in, so I got a really nice haircut from Menspire, and everything flopped, unfortunately. Alhamdulillah. But we have our Hamza Tzortzis in the building. Did I say it quickly?
That's not bad.
Not bad.
It's good.
Alhamdulillah. How are we, brother? How are you feeling?
I'm
You were not
good.
well yet last week.
Yeah, I'm good to
Feeling
see
better,
you
yeah?
guys.
Alhamdulillah, looking strong, mashallah. How often do you hit the gym?
It depends what I'm training for, but
Oh, really?
yeah, I should be doing it 7 to 8 times a week now. Yeah,
7 to 8 times, yeah?
yeah, morning and evening. Nothing too crazy.
That's crazy.
No, it's not.
Come on.
It's good to keep on moving, bro.
Mashallah,
Like Bruce Lee, what would he say? He would say that be like a river, keep on flowing. And it's good analogy. I'll tell you why.
I love your analogies.
Couple of Bruce Lee.
If you stay still, you become stagnant and smelly and
I
dirty.
hate that
right?
word
Yeah.
stagnant, man.
Why'd you hate the word stagnant, Sam?
It's just a horrible word. It just means it's just nothing good comes from stagnant. Stagnant.
I
And you can
suppose.
tell it in the word in itself. You don't really want to be described as stagnant or something. do you?
No, you don't.
true.
It's an awful
It's a
word.
ghastly word.
Hamza, you, I actually think that you came. So I studied in college. So all right, let me start from the beginning. When we normally have guests on the podcast, because of the nature of the podcast and it just being like a chat, a conversation, we don't do any research or anything like that because it's just a chat, right? You're the first guest after 33 episodes, after over 50 or 60 hours of talking, that I've had to actually revise for. Someone, and I thought it took me back to university, man. I studied criminology in university, so
wow.
a lot of the subjects, a lot of my modules were like social psychology, sociology, research methods in social sciences, and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of when I was like looking into kind of you as a person, it brought me back, and I felt like all of these words are coming back out with epistemology and all of this kind of stuff, and it was like it just, I felt like I was back at university. Speaking of which, I studied in Cardiff along with Only actually, and I think at the time I was at university, you had come down to Cardiff. If my memory serves me right, I might be completely wrong. I think you came down to do a debate in our SU, and I don't think I was practicing at the time, so I didn't really care at the time, but now I'm really upset that I didn't. I can see. Is that true, or am I thinking?
I think so. Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah, did you do a debate with like an atheist or something?
Yes.
Who was that?
It was with Dr. Arif Ahmed, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was alright. It was good. We learned a lot from it.
Really?
It was a good interaction.
How do you find these debates, man? Does it not? Do you get nervous beforehand?
I think they're pointless now. I haven't had a debate for ages.
Really, you don't do them anymore?
Well, I'll do a discussion. I'll give you an example. I think Muslims, we should become benevolent teachers, meaning like compassionate teachers now, rather than aggressive, I want to debate you, refute you. Yeah. And the reason being is because sociologically, the community, what I mean by the community is Muslims and non-Muslims, we're not ready for sincere, nuanced discussion. We live in a crazy world, bro. Twitter world, Facebook world, everything's really fast, everything's about judgments and assumptions. And if you want to sit down and have a kind of debate and a dialogue, it ends up being, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's just the expression of the ego. And that's why we can't do that, because the Prophet ﷺ said he guarantees a house in paradise for the one who gives up insincere and useless arguments and debates. So debates have an objective. It may be a sociological objective that, look, we have a really strong argument. Or it may be that you want to articulate yourself with compassion and reason and to really show people what Islam is about, what your worldview is about. But that doesn't happen these days. We live in such a crazy Twitter, Facebook world. And so I think we should change our strategy. So I tried to do that earlier this year. I had a discussion with Michael Nugent, nice guy. He's the head of Atheist Island. And he was coming with 1,000 contentions to God's existence. And I said, look, I'm not going to entertain a debate because you're just misrepresenting your whole tradition. And this comes with study, because I just finished 2 postgraduate degrees in philosophy. So I just finished my MA in it. And I'm going to be starting further research at University of London.
You're going to be doing a PhD, right?
Hopefully, inshallah, yeah. So what I realized is there's such a big gap between popularizers, the loudmouths, right? And even if they claim to be academic, but they have a popular view on things and they want to popularize their specific narrative. There's such a gap between the loudmouths, if you like, the evangelical types, and what is actually happening in academia. So even when it comes to things like God's existence, when it comes to things like revelation, or it comes to things like science itself, what is science, the philosophy of science, there's such a big gap. It's such a misrepresentation. And this is why I think a lot of Muslims, unfortunately, especially the youth, have been falling into doubts. A lot of people leave the religion. It's because all they see is YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and some really short articles. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to answer this. But the basis for that is not as, definite. What I mean is people's contentions against religion and revelation and using science to bash religion, for example, doesn't hold that much weight from an academic point of view. But they're just very loud. Take the Darwinian mechanism, for example. I follow the view you shouldn't really reject it practically. We're human beings, we're learning, we have limited understanding of the world. Allah has the picture, we just got the pixel. So we're always going to have a pixelated understanding of reality anyway, yeah? At the moment, the scientific consensus, general consensus is that the Darwinian mechanism somehow explains biological change. Fair enough. I don't have to put this into my aqidah. I don't have to put this into my creed. This is like gospel truth. No, we work with it, yeah? So don't reject it because it's the best that we have. However, the way it comes across sociologically, politically, and online is that it's the gospel truth. frankly, if you study the academia, it's not. And I give people challenges, right? Whoever's listening, here's a challenge. If you go into the academia about the Darwinian mechanism, you're going to find three things. Number one, it's based on a probabilistic framework, meaning it's not the gospel truth. It's not written in stone. It can change. Number two, it has assumptions. There are a hell of a lot of philosophical assumptions. If you study the philosophy of biology, there are some assumptions they have to start with that are unprovable in order for the whole thing to work. And number three, it has disputes. There are academic disputes in the core aspects of the mechanism that would drastically change the mechanism, the Darwinian mechanism. So it's probabilistic, has assumptions, and has disputes.
That's the pad thing you're speaking. I remember you talking about this in the
exactly. And Sabur Ahmed, he's actually studying this at uni now. So we're not rejecting it, and we're not accepting it from a creedal point of view that this is, yes, exactly how Allah created the human being, or, you know, these were the physical causes God uses in order to, you know, manifest His will. We're not saying that. All we're saying is, from a human-centric perspective, we're always going to have a fragmentary understanding of reality, because we're not going to have an infinite number of observations. There may be another observation that can contradict our current understanding. We should be open to that. And we move forward. And this was the traditional Islamic view, actually. And unfortunately, you have some popularizers within the Muslim community saying, no, you have to reject everything. I said, you can't do that. You can't have your cake and eat it from that point of view. Be a normal human being, accept the consensus, but understand that it's not the gospel truth, it's pad. It's probabilistic based on assumptions, has disputes. So
would it be fair to say that because when I was telling people that you were coming on the podcast, the very small amount of people who were unsure about kind of what you did and stuff, the way I kind of explained it is that would I be right in saying that you love and appreciate science? You're not against science. You do love and appreciate it, but you're also aware that it can be wrong.
Yeah,
and
just like most of the scientists.
And but you also use science to your advantage in arguments as well, right?
No, I don't. Actually.
Oh, you don't?
I don't at all. No, not really. So if I do, it's just as a supportive argument, not as the argument. Because, you know, coming from a philosophical point of view, I'm a kind of metaphysics type of guy. Fine. So when it comes to God's existence, I like to use arguments that transcend science. Okay. That no matter what science you bring into the table, you still basically have a really strong position. Like, for example, the argument from contingency is an argument in the Islamic tradition as well, across the different schools of creed. So it doesn't belong to one school of creed. It's actually a universalist Islamic argument. I call it the argument from dependency, that, you know, God is a necessary being, and, you know, everything that we perceive in the universe itself is basically contingent, dependent, which basically means it's not necessary. It didn't have to exist. In other words, it requires an explanation for itself. Yeah. Now, no matter what science you bring into the table, any type of science is always going to be contingent and dependent. You'd have to explain that phenomenon. It requires an explanation. There is nothing necessary about the universe itself. Anyway, it's a bigger argument, but the point is that it's what you call a metaphysical argument. You don't require science to prove God's existence from that point of view, because science changes. And in actual fact, methodologically, science can't prove God's existence anyway. It can suggest that some evidence that you could infer that may, you know, point towards a designer, but it can't really prove 100%, and it can't reject at all, because it's got a limited method. It deals with things that you can observe. God, by definition, is metaphysical, transcendent. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like unto him, right? So you can't. How can you use a methodology which requires direct or indirect observation to deny that thing which cannot be observed? It's a contradiction.
We can only do that within things inside the universe, not
absolutely
things that don't exist outside.
And that's so. Even scientists, for example, people don't read, and that's what really gets. By the way, I'm going to talk so much, you'll have to butt in. Otherwise, it'll be
no problem. But this is a monologue. You're on the perfect platform. That this is a podcast.
Or you have to give me, like, you know, a right hook.
No.
Shut me up for a bit.
I could never dare.
So basically, you're right, bro. Exactly. So people don't read anymore, and all people need to do to understand this whole science issue is just literally read the philosophy of science. The philosophy of science is a big topic, and I specialize this in one of my modules. And when you learn the philosophy of science, you learn things like the problem of induction. You learn things like epistemic holism. You learn things like the hypothetical deductive model. I think that's how you say it. I forgot the words now. You learn things like, you know, falsification, and it was proper right, and all of these different things that you learn about. And generally speaking, what you understand is that there's a consensus amongst the philosophers of science and the scientists that there is no gospel truth in science. It can change. You can have another observation that can contradict previous conclusions. Obviously, some things are unlikely to change, but when it comes to complex theories and things that require lots of different evidence, and you have a theory to try and explain as much evidence as possible, things can change. In actual fact, you will learn that things that have been falsified can be revived again. If you just change the assumptions, right? So the point I'm trying to say here is, when they read the philosophy of science, they'll understand. Like, there's a really good book published by Cambridge. It's by Hugh Gauch. It's called Scientific Method in Brief. And he makes a really good point. He says to insist that science leads to atheism is to get high marks for enthusiasm, low marks for logic.
You mentioned reading, and you're like quoting a lot of books and that kind of stuff. At what age did you start reading? Because it seems like reading is obviously...
Well, to be very, very frank with you, when I became Muslim 15 years ago, I read very minimal books.
Okay.
And what I did, because I was so, and I wrote this in my preface to my book, I was so zealous about, sharing Islam, I would just copy Christian philosophers.
I thought it's pronounced preface. Is it preface?
Yeah, it's preface, preface, whatever.
I read your preface.
Potatoes,
I think
potatoes.
I read 23 pages of your book, because I borrowed it from him and I started like 2 days ago. And so if I'm going to be doing a lot of questioning about your preface and the first 2 pages of chapter 1.
Yes.
After that, I'm not too sure. But yeah, because you mentioned that your dad had acquired quite a few books in that time, so you started picking up his books and stuff like that.
Yeah, so my dad had books like The Power of Positive Thinking. I think he got like the first edition of that book from the 70s. He had the book The Science of the Mind by Ernest Holmes. He had books on mysticism. But my dad we couldn't read those books at that age anyway, but we tried to. But he would talk to us a lot. So,
do you find that, when, for example, a lot of stand-up comedians say that, like, because by nature they're a stand-up comedian and their job is to be funny, a lot of people that they're around will try and like be funny people, and it's a bit cringy, or like they try and make them laugh. And do you find that because like you're quite clever, or you use quite big words,
I'm not clever.
Well, people around you will try and like use big words? Does that happen to you? And is it cringy? Really?
No, really. I realize the company that you have, see, relationships are a mirror, aren't they? So you see a different side to yourself when you interact with other human beings. Like having a personality.
That's true. That's very, very true.
Like I believe having a personalities don't exist. There's no such thing as you having a personality or you having a personality. Personality is a social construct. It's a relation between two different conscious entities. Like, do you have a personality on a desert island? I mean, maybe the way you interact with yourself, if you like, maybe, yeah. But generally speaking, as we know it as a kind of, thing that we talk about, personality is really when you're in a relation to something.
Right. And
you could be in relation to different people. And that's why we have a really crazy understanding of personality. We think it's static. This guy has this personality. That's rubbish. I was different last week.
Fine, yeah, that makes sense.
Call me schizo, bipolar, whatever. I was different yesterday morning.
Yeah.
So
human beings are fluid, bro.
Are you saying that you have a different relationship with each person you have in your life, and it constantly changes? It doesn't, like, you haven't got one set personality, like how you are.
But you would also have like innate. Sorry, Sam, go and carry on.
That's it.
Yeah, so you would, but you'd also have like a deep down characteristics of your personality. Like if you have a short temper, everyone will like see maybe your short temper at some point if they spend enough time with you, but just in different ways, right? Or
Fair
not?
enough. So you may have some fundamental stuff that you express differently with different people, but the kind of common denominator, if you like, is there.
It's
Those
true,
characteristics are there. But I think when you deal with people, different aspects of yourself come out, and then you learn something about yourself you never learned before. You unveil things that you've never seen before within yourself. And my dad always says to me in Greek, min gremazis bethamenos pastimbladiso, which means don't hang dead people on your shoulders. Like sometimes, my mom would like have a dig at him what he did like 55 million years ago, right? And he was like, that guy's dead.
Makes sense.
But you see my point, that guy's dead. Yeah. Okay, I take responsibility, I'm accountable, but don't think that's me now. And that's a big problem with social media and even the Muslim and non-Muslim community. Unfortunately, we've become very egocentric in this approach where we're like just because he did a mistake 3 years ago, we reduce people by their mistakes. We don't reduce them by their humanity.
Yeah.
And that's the most disgraceful thing you can ever do. And it's not in our tradition anyway. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you know, the son of Adam, the human being, errs, makes mistakes, does sins, and the best of those who sin are those who repent, turn back. Yeah, but we want no one to turn back anymore. Oh, look what he did. He must be like this.
We hold people to it,
And you have this, the media is like that, everybody's like this, but we have a ethical and spiritual responsibility to not to reduce people to the shortcomings and the mistakes, but to elevate them. And that's what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to do, is to restore people, restore heads, not take them off. Right? So just to, you know, elevate human beings. But we don't do that anymore.
When you said that you were different last week and you were different yesterday morning, do you mean...
I didn't take my pills, bro, that's why.
Is that what it was, yeah? Would you say that in the sense that you're ever evolving and you're getting better, you're self-developing?
Well,
or
maybe
sometimes
maybe
the other
not
way,
getting better. Talk to my wife, she'd be like, I don't think so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Human beings have a tendency of wanting to grow, isn't it?
Of course.
Growth is a really key motivation.
And not being stagnant.
Yeah, you hate that word. Right? So I think it's very important for us to keep on growing, keep on flowing. You know, the Bruce Lee analogy of the river again.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep on flowing. It's very important.
So what does Hamza Tzortzis do then? When Hamza Tzortzis is not being Hamza Tzortzis, in the sense that when you're at home,
Would that make me dead then?
No, but I mean, like, you know, like I imagine you, right? When you're done with work, you go home after a long day. I imagine you go into your bookshelf, open up a book and reading until you fall asleep, waking up with your book in your hands.
Not at all.
Do you do a lot of? I suppose I was gonna ask, do you do a lot of studying independently? But I imagine because you do so much, because you're also just finished.
Because I got into the academic realm, you had to read. So,
do you enjoy it? Reading, I hated it.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. What I've learned to do now, though, is be very critical with my own ideas, which is good, I guess. Like, I've evolved in certain positions I used to hold. I think it's all about becoming more spiritually, intellectually mature, I guess.
Fine. Because you grow.
I haven't reached that status,
peak, yeah.
but it's something that we should aspire to.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you've kind of slowed down like the debating and stuff, because I remember in the preface of your book, which is the only bit that I read, you did say that you knew, unless I interpreted it wrong, that you kind of understood like the fact that Islam was the correct way of life a bit earlier than you had accepted Islam, because you said that there was two different like parts of it. One is understanding that it's the truth, and the other part is having that feeling in your heart, the feeling that we would probably explain as that having iman in your heart, and that's a feeling that is very hard to put into words, because it's just the way I try and explain it to people. When I originally like first started practicing, I'd explain to my family, I'd say I feel like God is hugging me. That's the only place I explain. And now
that is probably the cutest thing I've heard this morning.
Now I say that I just feel like my heart is happy.
That's so cute.
But because it's so hard to explain that feeling, right? But so then you said in your book that the moment you felt that feeling, that's when you accepted Islam.
Yeah, of course.
So when you're debating, or when you were debating atheists, or when perhaps you're in Speaker's Corner, which I know you're not really often in there and stuff, but when you are speaking to atheists, I know, man. I honestly,
it's
when
a fish market.
But I hate going to Speaker's Corner, man. I can't stand it. I understand the benefits of it, but for me, there's not a lot of benefit in it.
You're a cuddly, nice guy. That's
So anyway, my point is that when you're debating with people who are atheists, is there not a point that you think to yourself, look, like Allah says in the Quran, O Muhammad, whoever I guide, no man can lead, you cannot lead astray, whoever I lead astray, no man can guide, right? And so at what point do you say to yourself, look, I'll probably explain it to him logically, he probably does accept it, even if he's removed his arrogance, because I know arrogance and ego in debates are a big thing, but look, he just hasn't got that feeling in his heart. At what point do you just leave the discussion?
Well, you shouldn't leave, you should just change your approach. Like, people assume that you have this rational algorithm, and then if you follow these steps, it would lead to someone having faith.
Fine.
That is ridiculous.
Okay.
Like, even just from experience, from a traditional point of view, from an Islamic source text point of view, from our own epistemology, how we understand knowledge and truth, it doesn't make sense. It's so incongruent. It's against what has been taught traditionally for over 1,000 years. Reason does not lead to iman, faith, believing in Allah. yes, we can use it to prove in an abstract way, but you can know something to be the truth and not actually internalize that truth, yeah? So, and even our approach to atheists or humanists or skeptics is totally wrong. We think we have to give them some kind of like abstract cosmological argument or some scientific evidence or some... He's a human being, for God's sake. He's not an intellectual zombie or robot. Yeah. You're going to, have you seen The Matrix? You're going to plug something behind his head and now he knows Kung Fu.
Right.
They're human beings. And that's why we don't get along with people, because we share Islam. We convey Islam to our judgments, not to the person. So if John the atheist came up to me and said, hey, I'm John, I'm an atheist, what happens in my mind? What happens in my mind is this: let me now try and prove him wrong because he must be evangelical with his science and he must require some scientific evidence. He's probably like a farty-arty student, has no idea about science, and he's only an atheist because his mum passed away when he was 3 and he's got no answers. But you would never know that about him because we're so arrogant. We share Islam, we convey Islam to the judgments of who we think people are, not who the person really is. We need to come as a blank canvas to people, but we don't do that.
Yeah.
So in my experience, when I do try and plant the rational seed in people's hearts and minds, when they respond with really silly questions and they want to split the philosophical hair, that for me is an indication that it's got nothing to do with reason, it's to do with psychology. And then I shift it and say, let's get a pizza. And then you connect with them like a human being. But what we do, and especially Speaker's Corner, unfortunately, is like that. You got to refute him, bruv. Yeah? He gave you some crazy question like, what was God doing for eternity before he created the universe? Why do you think you have to answer that? Frankly, it's an idiot. That's how we say in Hackney. Yeah?
Okay,
it's
fine.
an idiot who thinks that they have to answer all the question. If you think you have to answer all the questions, frankly, you're a fool.
Yeah.
Even Allah doesn't answer all the questions. In actual fact, if you read the Quran, Allah teaches you how to question, not to get an answer.
SubhanAllah, I was going to bring this up with you. SubhanAllah,
So the Quranic strategy is like a Socratic strategy in many ways, which Allah asks you the questions, even if it's rhetorical questions. Because if you ask the right questions, it would inevitably lead to the right answers. So we should, instead of trying to think, superimpose our egos on people and think, here's an answer, let them think. If you teach someone how to think, bro, it's far more powerful than giving them an answer. Just like, if someone's starving and they need food, don't give them a fish. Teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
So that's why I said we should become benevolent teachers in a way. Teach people how to critically think.
And how do you do that?
Just asking them questions.
Teach people how to think by asking them
questions. Asking the right questions, right?
That's very interesting, John. What if I were to ask you this and then give the question? What would you say about that? What do you think the implications are? And that's important. So we think that everything is a rational process. Not. We're human beings. We're like a cocktail of different things. We're a bit of reason, a bit of emotions, a bit of instinct, a bit of innate nature, a bit of everything. And this is in line with Islamic epistemology. So the view I follow is that we have some first principles. The fitrah. You probably heard of the fitrah before, yeah? The famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Muslim when he said every child is born in a state of fitrah. This comes from the Arabic triliteral stem fatara, which you have words like fatrun and fatrahu. Like something has been created within us to acknowledge Allah and to glorify Him. That's the first principle is non-negotiable. So that's our fitrah. But if you study the hadith further, it's parenting and society that changes that disposition. It clouds the fitrah. Our job is simply to uncloud the fitrah.
Okay, I understand.
And so it awakens the truth within. I know it sounds like Yoda, yeah?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
So our job is to plant the seed or uncloud the fitrah to awaken the truth within. Now the question is, what unclouds the fitrah?
Right.
People think it's just reason and science. No, it's not.
But for different people, it's different things.
I think it's a combination of things for many people. It could be reason, a bit of reason, planting the seed intellectually. It could be just being a really decent human being, which we lack sometimes, yeah? It could be buying him pizza or her pizza. It could be getting them to pray. Like I believe I became Muslim because I started praying. I started praying before I became Muslim. And many reverts that I speak to, converts that I speak to, they knew Islam was true in an abstract way, but they weren't Muslim. But they became Muslim and started to practice the tradition. And that's why, for me, scholars like Al-Ghazali, the 11th century theologian, he was called the proof of Islam, not because he had proofs for Islam per se, but because his life was a proof of Islam. And if you study his life has a lot to tell us today. I think his life is an ayah. It's a sign for us because, he studied philosophy, then he wrote the book Tahafut al-Falasifa, the incoherence of the philosophers. Then he went all into this kind of intellectual exercise. And at the end, what did he say? You know, a rational algorithm is not going to lead to iman, faith. What's going to lead to you knowing God exists in your heart and soul is actually internalizing the teachings, and then you just know. And this is very powerful. It's more of an existential approach rather than a rational approach. An existential approach is, what does it mean for me? How do I internalize, for example, the sunnah? And when the Prophet said this, and I practice it, did it work? If it worked, then you know it's true. You've experienced that truth, yeah? So, anyway, I think I'm going off on a rant here. But anyway, the fitrah aspect, lots of things awaken the fitrah. A lot of things uncloud the fitrah. It could be reason, it could be negative experiences, a death in the family, spiritual experiences. Oh yeah, it could be just praying, as I said. It could be all of those things. And we don't know what Allah will use to awaken the truth within someone. Do you see?
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of this. Say, hypothetically, I had to clean up my mum's basement. I'm 37 years old. I'm cleaning my mum's basement. And in the corner of the room, I see this dusty, old school bag. The zip is very rusty. I open the zip, and I find in the bag my old toy of Donald Duck. Yeah? Right? Donald Duck. And what happens to me? I forgot all about my favorite toy when I was 5 years old, 32 years prior. But the minute I see it in my mother's basement, what happens to me?
You remember it all?
I go, oh yeah, that was Donald Duck, bro. Yeah. My favorite toy. This is exactly how Muslims should be. We should remind people what they already know, the basic principles of there is a creator and that he deserves glorification and praise. Because, bro, at the end of the day, we praise people all the time. It's the most innate thing. Like, I like boxing, for example. Anthony Joshua, bit flat-footed, but decent fighter, quite humble. You know, those are praiseworthy attributes. You know, what about Mo Farah when he was doing the 5,000 and 10,000 meters and he was winning in the Olympics? You go, yeah, amazing, standing ovation. You give him you applaud him. Poetry, Iqbal, the famous Indian, Asian, Pakistani, whatever poet. You know, he was an amazing poet, right? Some of his lines are phenomenal when he said, this prostration you find too difficult frees you from 1,000 prostrations. Wow, deep, man, wicked, innit? Yeah, you just love it. You praise him because we praise people because we see certain attributes in them that we believe deserve praise, right? But these things are deficient, and these things are not perfect, and these things are limited. So what does that mean, how we should praise Allah? So he's not limited and not deficient, and he's not, flawed. He has perfect names and attributes. So what should it mean about our hearts and how we should praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you see? So that's a natural instinct. And that's why people have misdirected worship, isn't it? Everyone worships. Everyone worships, bro. And that's why sometimes you don't need rational arguments. You need these profound existential arguments which come from the Quran. Chapter 39, verse 29, I believe, when Allah says, consider the state of two people. One man, he's a slave to many masters and they're all arguing. Another man, he's a slave to one master. Whose condition's best? Who? The one who's slave to one master is best. Exactly. So Allah is trying to say to us, worship the one who deserves worship and loves you more than your mother does and knows you better than you know yourself. But if you don't worship Allah, you're going to be worshipping these so many different slave masters, right? And they're all arguing and quarreling. Your boss, your teacher, peer pressure, the politicians, your ideology, this, that, and the other, right? And that's why worshipping Allah is true freedom. Yeah, it's true freedom. It gives you the sense of raha, this ease and serenity. Interestingly, the word ruh shares the same root as the word raha. And the ruh, the soul, wants that liberty, ease, raha. Yeah? So anyway, the point here is, talk about misdirected worship. If someone loves something the most, if someone wants to know something the most, if someone wants to obey something the most, and if someone wants to show gratitude to something the most, that's the thing they worship. Because the definition of worship in Islam is to know Allah, to love Allah, to obey Allah, and to direct and single out all acts of worship to Allah alone, internal acts and external acts. That's the definition of worship. Now apply it to everything else in your life. There's something that we worship whether we believe in God or not. Right. Is there something that you want to know the most? Yes. Or some things that you want to know the most? Is there something or things you love the most? Is there some things or things you obey the most? Is there something or things that you want to direct your acts of worship like gratitude towards the most? Absolutely. That's the thing you worship. So Islam really is telling everybody don't have misdirected worship.
Right.
That's what it is.
Just come to the right way, yeah,
Let
basically.
me give you a crude example.
Go ahead.
Young girls or boys,
Okay.
unfortunately these days, they might like Justin Bieber, right?
Yep.
They want to know Justin Bieber the most. They go on Twitter, they go on Facebook, social media profile. Their whole day is about finding out the gossip and want to know that person the most. They want to love Justin Bieber the most, right? They may write in their diaries, oh, my life won't make sense without Justin. I love Justin so much, all that stuff, right? They obey Justin. If Justin were to say, eat spinach, I'm telling you, spinach sales would skyrocket amongst young teens,
Yeah.
right? And they express acts of worship, like gratitude towards Justin the most by buying his memorabilia or paraphernalia or concert tickets. That's by definition a worship.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you want to know, love, obey, and direct acts of worship to, that's the thing that you really worship.
And so you're saying if you're going to do that, you might as well, we should do it to the one who actually deserves it, basically.
Well, that's the most rational and the most spiritually sound thing to do.
Yeah.
Worship the one that deserves worship.
Right.
Because who is God in the Islamic tradition? Allah. We believe in maximal perfection, perfect theology, meaning God's names and attributes, who God is, his names and attributes are to the highest degree possible. They have no deficiency and no flaw, and they're perfect. So if you can praise, which is a form of worship, things that have limited and deficient attributes, then what does it mean about praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You watch Blue Planet 2?
No, my wife was like, we have to watch Blue Planet 2. So we started watching it, and I like 10 minutes in, I switched it to something else. Yeah, I switched
Really?
it to...
Bored of it?
I like David Attenborough's documentaries when it's about like the jungle and lions and about the water. I'm not so much interested in, but we said we'd carry on. I think we were just tired, man, so I ended up turning off. But it got more ratings than like some of the mainstream shows that week, like X Factor and stuff. Like Blue Planet 2 was like the most viewed TV show last week.
Factor,
No. But I'm
sure.
I'm positive. I would never waste my time doing such things.
Good.
Bro,
you watch it at Blue 2?
I've just started similar to Faisal. We started it, but it was late and we had to turn it off. But I'm gonna.
Oh, really?
But I'm telling you, it's amazing.
So I remember the start. He was on the boat, and then I don't remember.
yeah, he was on the boat, and
That's all I remember, man.
There's a fish that goes to the edge of the coral reef.
Do you love that kind of stuff? Do you like that kind of stuff, Blue Planet 2?
This is the natural world is a theater of divine names and attributes, bro.
So you love it.
And if you don't see that, then we're spiritually deluded.
I remember when
Bro,
the first time
I was
Sam's
really
house-
crying when I was watching it.
You're crying?
There's this fish, bro. Fish are supposed to be dumb. Like dumb. There's a
Well, your
fish.
kids are your kids like, oh, Dad, we don't want to watch another documentary.
No, they love it.
Do they love it?
Yeah, they love documentaries. So there's a fish that goes to the edge of the coral reef, picks up a clam with its mouth, goes all the way back to its habitat, and there's this like coral thing with a little bump, and it uses that bump to basically try and open the clam by throwing the clam with its mouth, and eventually after a couple of tries it opens and it could eat what it wants to eat.
Wow.
That's a fish. You have a form of a killer whale with dolphins. You think these killer whales are going to come and kill the dolphins, but what they do, they're chasing them, and then they meet, and it's as if they're having a conversation. And scientists say they individually recognize each other. They're having friends and they're talking to each other in sonar or whatever. Yeah. You had, for example, some fish, female fish, their hormones change and their facial expressions change and the features change and they become males. Yeah, would you believe it?
Really?
Yeah. Now, this has got nothing to do with Blue Planet 2, but there's another type of fish. It's a type of, was it puffer fish or puffin fish? Yeah. It doesn't look very pretty at all, but it wants to attract females. What does it do? For 24 hours non-stop, and it has to work for that long so the undercurrent doesn't spoil what it's trying to make. Using its fins, it makes a mathematical geometric structure in the ground.
Yeah.
Bro, you would not believe it, yeah? Who gave that fish that mathematical structure in its brain in order for it
It's
to
like
do?
perfect as well, isn't it?
Bro, it's phenomenal.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And these things that you just stand in awe thinking, this is just amazing stuff. It's just phenomenal stuff, you know? Study ants. You know, if you study ants, you know, ants apparently are the closest thing to us sociologically.
Wow.
People think it's the monkeys, right? Or the gorillas or the apes. They're not. Sociologically, the closest thing to us are the ants. Now, you won't even believe what I'm saying. You'll have to study this yourself. Ants, bro, they have obviously a city. They live in cities like we do, but they communicate. Ants have their own punishment system. Ants as well, they have their own cattle.
Really?
Bro,
What do they use?
aphids.
Serious? SubhanAllah.
Listen, they have aphids, and they move the aphids from the lesser green area of the leaf to the more greeny area. Yeah, so, you know, the grass, if you like. Not only that-
I just love how excited you get
Bro,
over
but
this.
listen to
That's
this,
what
bro.
makes me
Bro,
excited.
You don't make
I'm like,
this up
it's-
because you're thinking who wrote
Nah, it's
this
insane,
stuff?
it's
Yeah,
insane,
Allah
yeah.
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
SubhanAllah.
So they also milk the aphid,
Milk it.
just like we milk cows, bro.
Really?
And honeydew comes from the posterior of the aphid, and they drink the honeydew, which is good for them. And do you know how they milk the aphid? Their antennae stroke the backs of the aphids.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah.
You don't make this stuff up, bro.
Yeah.
And they have
The guy's mouth is open.
Yeah.
You could put a fish in his mouth. But it's true. And there's much more. There's much more. Ants also have their own chemical engineering. Honestly, you just wouldn't. Bees as well. They have their own punishment system as well. There's a bee who gets drunk on a sap of a tree. Gets drunk, starts buzzing back into the beehive. And if he's a second or third offender, they kill him.
Serious?
Wow.
They even kill the queen if they don't accept it. So if you introduce a new queen to whole like I don't know what it's called. What's a
I don't know.
I don't know.
Colony,
know.
maybe?
I don't know. Colony. Yeah. If they don't accept it, then
That's mad.
get killed.
Have you got a thing on, by the way?
Well, so they'll bring the queen in front of them. If the bees don't accept the queen, they'll just kill her
They'll
on the
destroy
spot.
her. They'll eat her alive.
They'll eat her alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tempting day
Bees
off.
are the most like amazing creatures to like observe when it comes to like and like when you're obviously mentioning mathematics, like they're obviously the honeycomb structures.
Yeah, it's just,
Unreal.
and they have their own dance and
Yeah,
they communicate. I mean, these things is amazing.
Just the fact that they've got a queen is quite remarkable in itself. That they've got a society where there's bees among them who are in charge.
Yeah, like even ants, they have like soldier ants.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have armies.
They're queen ants. They're ants in charge as well.
I'm not sure.
King and queen ants. Do you know that? Is there a
I'm not sure. I think so.
I don't know. There's been like the queen and then the worker ants and then
Yes,
Yeah,
and you
so
got
there is
army
a
ants
hierarchy.
as well.
Really, there's a.
they do have a social.
Bro, they are
Some-
close to us sociologically.
Yeah, social
That's
life
mad.
is mad.
It's just phenomenal, man.
So when you're trying to explain this stuff, right?
Well, I don't really. I just explain it
No, sorry,
passionately. I don't.
But you know how
really-
in general, you're passionate about Deen, alhamdulillah, like everybody, like all of us are. And when you're when you are maybe speaking to somebody who isn't a Muslim, do you have a lot of, in your personality, generally, I know you're saying personality changes, but generally, deep down, do you have a personality trait that's like, do you have a lot of patience and calmness
I'm
to
probably
you?
patient with long things, not with short things.
But when someone like for example, in your debate with Lawrence Krauss, when he said, you know, the girls at the back wearing bags because when he was talking about the hijab or the abaya, and like as soon as like, for example, I would hear that or Sam would hear that, I know Sam which be like, oh, how's man saying stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? It gets you angry, but the way you handled it was almost perfect.
I don't remember.
So
I don't recognize myself 4 years ago.
So what happened? So
That's probably a good thing.
So he said something like, women are wearing bags.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
but
you
he's
and the way,
making
but the
a
way you
moral
do,
judgment.
right? But that would anger a normal person. But you just kind of like very quickly flipped it back on him and like made a joke out of what he said,
but you
made
know-
him look stupid.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, right? What's interesting is people sometimes, because of ego, people don't see the door swings both ways.
You can see the ego in it.
Like, for example, we're doing this campaign on Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Alayhi salam, upon whom be peace, and we're doing an exhibition, so we're talking about the virgin birth. You know, you have some scientists and naturalists that find it so, you guys are so stupid. You believe in this miraculous virgin birth. And I'm thinking, hold on a second, my friend. You know, some people are so arrogant, they don't see the door swings right back into and smashes their teeth, right?
Yeah.
At least we believe life came from life. Like Isa alayhi salam, from God's will and power, came into existence. God is all living, all aware. Life comes from life. You believe that we came from a primordial, lifeless soup. What is more stupid? But you get my point. You believe fundamentally in a naturalistic, physicalist world that we're just a rearrangement of electrons that fundamentally have no intrinsic value, meaning, consciousness, or anything. And you think the different complex arrangement of those lifeless, meaningless, valueless things would bring the mystery of life into existence. What is far more stupid?
Yeah.
You believe in things far more ridiculous than we do, and now you want to turn the table on us. Shut it. Honestly, man. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is so dumb. So, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on these people, yeah? I consider myself a really nice guy, generally speaking.
You have friends who's an atheist?
I got friends that are atheists, skeptics, you know.
When you have when you go out for like lunch with these friends who are atheists, and like, you know, I'm sure you're not always just talking about like, you know, you do have some downtime, don't you? Where you're just chilling and stuff. So when you, let's say
I rarely have lunches with people anyway. I'm a bit of a I'm a bit of a social dyslexic.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I think the older I'm getting, the more social anxiety.
You just want to be by yourself and stuff.
Like I'll give a course and I want to go straight to my hotel room and sit in the bath for 3 hours. But that for me is paradise.
Bro, I'm a home bug, man, myself. Like, I love the idea of being at home and stuff. And even when I go on holiday, I hate the idea of going on holiday for 7 days. It seems like too much for me. 5 days is perfect for me. Like,
so don't go on holiday then.
No, because I like a bit of time away, but just really quick, like time away and then back. I like being at home. Do you know what I mean? So, or sometimes you have to travel for business and stuff. But no, I'd say I'm fairly similar in that regard. I know you are as well.
You keep your social circles quite small.
Yes. Like, you know, my best mate is.
Got some.
Sorry. Best mate is.
There you are.
Yeah.
And white hair potentially.
Yeah, it's good, man.
There you are.
I don't know. I don't know.
How many friends do you have? Close knit.
But how did you find close knit?
So I have like, I'd say I have like 2 friends that are like literally. In my friend circle, I have maybe like 3 or 4 people who I'm really, really tight with, right? And even smaller than that, like in regards to sharing my entire life, like even smaller than that.
So you would speak to them on the phone?
I would speak to them on the phone.
And you meet up with them and do social things with them?
So, yeah, no, because that's quite like, that's like more like, that's like larger. I mean, like,
so
when you
how do you define a friend?
I'm talking
in this context.
In my context, I'm talking about.
Like you could be friendly with someone, but you may not define them as a close friend.
Right.
So how do you define an intimate friend? That's what I want to know.
Someone who you would share really deep stuff with, and you trust them to the point where you know, like, I'd say Onali, for example, is my like number 1 top like friend. If I like remove my brother from it because he's a family relation, I'd put my brother in the same category I'd put Onali. But if I remove him because he's my brother, like he has the password to my online banking. Do you know what I mean? And nobody else, even my wife doesn't have that. So like I would say like my. And that's been built over like 8 years of friendship and sharing, really, you know, living with each other and sharing stuff like that. So my circle in regards to that, I'm saying, how big is that circle?
Yeah, I think mine's quite small.
Like 1 or 2 friends.
Yeah. And even if I do, because work and hobbies and friendship has merged into one now for me.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to understand what it means to have a friend from a social point of view.
Fine, makes sense.
Yeah, like I'll socialize with my wife, really.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, when I do things, it'll be with my wife.
She's your best friend.
Yeah, but she's very cringe if I were to say.
Have you married long? How long have you been married? You probably got a lot of experience in us guys.
2004.
Alhamdulillah. I can't count. That's like 14 years.
13,
14 years. SubhanAllah.
So, look, the thing is, guys, it's yeah, I mean, that's why I don't really know what it means. But is there people that I trust that I don't consider my intimate friend? Yes.
Okay.
So there's a bit. It's like someone I would trust with my own wife, for example, or my own children, or my bank password. There are so many brothers I know that I would trust with that, but I wouldn't really consider them, you know, my bosom buddies, if you like.
Fine. That's one way of putting it, isn't it?
Do you see my point?
Yeah, makes sense.
So I don't know. It's an interesting concept, friendship. Yeah, it's another fluid concept as well. But yeah, so I don't think I have the kind of typical arrangement where, you know, there's a buddy, I say let's go out and do something.
You don't go out a lot.
No.
You tend to stay at home.
You got the gym.
Yeah.
You got your family.
You got work.
You got your work and your studies.
By that time,
and then fitting in. You know what? Value your time. There's a really good Stoic philosopher. His name was Seneca. He wrote, I believe, an essay on. I heard the audiobook of it. It's not that long. It's on the shortness of life.
Okay.
And he's trying to prove that your life is long enough. And he says, you waste your life. That's the problem. You waste your time. And he was like, you know, if someone were to take your wealth away from you, you would chase them. Tooth and nail, you fight back to get your wealth back. But he says there's something that's more valuable than wealth that you're not even bothered about. And what's more valuable than wealth is time. That's what life is made up of. Because you can't invest in more time, bro, and you can't get more time. It's limited. You can invest in wealth and get more wealth, right? So time is so valuable. And we waste it. Like, just imagine the things that we do on social media, watching irrelevant YouTube clips.
Do you have social media? You do have social media.
Yeah, I do. But how do you use it? Like, if you go on my Facebook, for example, I probably haven't used it for a week or 10 days. I try and follow the view that I don't want to put some things up just because people are expecting and for me to stay fresh and people to stay relevant. I think that's bad intention. Obviously, if you have a business, you have a message to give, fine. But I like to be as natural as possible on social media.
So if you have something that you want to express, you put it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise
if not, I wouldn't. Like, some people are like, I haven't done it for 2 days, got to do it. Haven't done it for 3 days, got to do it. And I think that's disingenuous. It's inauthentic, and we need far more authenticity in our public speakers and discourse and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're a podcast and you've got a message, that's a different story. But as a speaker, as someone who's considered a speaker, or someone considered a public figure, or someone who, you know, articulate a more of a spiritual message or whatever the case may be, they have to be very authentic. They shouldn't have in their mind, right, I haven't said something for 2 days, I need to make something up.
Yeah.
That for me is inauthentic. And we need more authentic characters and say things how it is.
I just clocked your Apple Watch. How long have you had that?
I got this one yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is that the newer one?
Yeah.
How would you do you like it? I've got mine in my bag. I just haven't got it on. What do you think
I
about
like
them?
it because it makes me not touch my phone much.
It's really good like that, isn't it? I find the most beneficial thing about having my watch is that the reminder. The calendar. Because I never use my iPhone. I'll never go into my iPhone calendar and see like what meetings I have or anything like that. But on your phone, on the face, it tells you like 9 till 12. I'm at Freshly Guardian, that kind of stuff. I think.
Yeah, so it should say, it's gone now. But now it's convey. So I'm going to convey.
Yeah, because that's the next thing. That's the next thing you have.
In Brixton. So
it shows up on the main screen.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, you can change the face, can't you?
Oh, okay,
so you could do that as well.
What does the newer one have in terms of features? Is that the newer one, as in the one that they just released?
This is the 3, yeah.
Yeah. What does it have
I
in
can
terms
make a
of?
call now with this with my phone being at home now.
Oh, with your
That's
phone being
what I
at
do.
home.
So on my phone to be at home, I could go to the gym, I can go to work. I can't wait for the time you just have a phone watch.
It's pretty much like that now, isn't it?
It's
Really?
gonna turn into that soon, yeah.
Yeah. But do you know when we got them, they were. I'm actually not allowed to speak about it, but they made us sign so many contracts that we can't speak about loads of things. But I basically got a really good deal on mine.
Who's they?
Apple. So I was working there when I got mine.
Oh, so it's non-disclosure.
Yeah, they have a really big like.
No way.
Yeah, massive man. Like, there's a lot of things.
Slave.
Yeah, proper. But we got a good deal.
No, but
on
a
them.
Muslim has to stick to the agreements.
Yes,
Very
of course.
important.
But my point is that the sales of the watch originally were not anything like what they expected them to be, and so they were quite upset because, and especially
How long ago was that?
This was years ago now. Like
How long have they been out for?
the Apple Watch, maybe like 3 years.
They've
I
been
want
out
to
for
say
3 years.
4 years.
How long are they? Would you say they're popular now, aren't they? I see more and more people with them. Do you think are they popular or not so much?
They're very convenient if you use it in the right ways.
So
But
that means they are popular.
yeah. I see a lot of people.
more
You know,
people's
Bilal,
wrist.
for example. Bilal
Yeah.
loves his Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves it because it is convenient.
Why do you need that and a what and a phone in front of you?
You don't. I mean,
You don't
for
need
me,
both,
this
yeah.
was a bit of an accident because my friend bought 2,
Okay.
and so I took one from him, but I couldn't get the SIM version connected to my account because it was connected to his account. So that's why it came yesterday. But I was been wearing this for a few weeks because my friend had 2 and he couldn't give one away or wasn't bothered or whatever, and I wanted one anyway. So I wasn't really gonna go out there and just buy it myself.
Are you completely an Apple guy in all your technology?
Not really. Well, yeah. I mean, I got iPhone 7. I got iPhone Watch.
Mac?
I had a Mac, but it fell in the bath. So.
How could your Mac fully?
Yeah, we don't have to go down that. We don't have to discuss that in any shape or form.
Yeah.
Was it a 3 hour long bath?
No, actually, this was before I got in the bath.
Okay.
It was. Don't worry about it. It's stupid.
Fine.
But it fell.
Do you find yourself traveling a lot for work?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
month I went to Canada twice and I went to Netherlands.
Oh, I think I might have seen the poster for the Canada one potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you? So generally, when you get asked to do talks and stuff, is it generally about?
Now it's changed because I got a different position. You see, so I have to change.
Because now you focus more on you talk about the same thing about like God's existence, but
No,
through
really,
Islam.
I don't even do that much.
Okay.
But our strategic focus is to develop.
When you say our, you mean IERA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is to develop.
What is IERA? Sorry.
IERA
yeah.
is an organization that is dedicated in advancing the prophetic mission, which is to convey the call to reconnect human beings back to the Creator. And we
Okay.
want to do that with compassion and reason. That's the 10-second speed on IERA. We've had a journey. We've done lots of mistakes, but we're learning. So I recently became the CEO in
Allahu
March.
Barik. Wow.
No, it was forced on me.
Really?
Yeah. But I've learned a lot and it's been brilliant. So
That's your thing, is
I
it?
want to take leadership in the sector now. So I think we have the best risk management and the best extremism processes and policies in the sector. Without
Is it
a doubt.
international?
We're global, yeah. We're in
Fine.
6 continents.
SubhanAllah.
We're working in 6 continents and we're growing, and I'm trying to make the governance as robust as possible and take leadership in that. So we've got really good risk management. We've got a very sophisticated risk management analysis, risk management processes. We have risk management group.
What do you mean by risk management?
Risk management, basically, what is a risk? A risk is a potential issue. It's anything that can potentially have an adverse effect on your finances, on your operations, on your projects, on whatever, your work. So what you have to do is have a process and a procedure in order to basically capture risks so you can prevent those potential issues coming into existence. For example, a financial risk would be there is a risk that we will get closed down. We'll have to close down because we don't have enough funds, for example. That's a risk. What is the likelihood from 1 to 5? 2. What's the impact? 5. It's the highest, yeah, because
people lose jobs.
Because you lose jobs and your strategy's gone and your vision's gone and it's whatever, right? That's pre-mitigation. Now you need to find out what the mitigations are. So what are your mitigations? Have a good fundraising plan and strategy. You know, have multiple streams of fundraising.
I don't see how you were doing a lot of like fundraising stuff. It's funny because
Well, I'll explain that in a minute, yeah. So then when you have these in place, if you have these in place, how does it reduce the impact and likelihood? It reduces it now. So we have a pre-mitigation analysis and a post-mitigation analysis. So that's risk management. You have to do that for most major things. So it's a job in itself, but it works because it helps you move the organization forward. So we had a campaign called No God, No Good, and it coincided with the unfortunate Manchester attacks.
okay.
So we still wanted to keep the campaign and go into the public and talk about God and, you know, no God, no good, right? God's names and attributes and, you know, the really powerful inner dimensions of, you know, Islamic spirituality and stuff. But we thought, how are we going to prevent any backlash? So we cancelled maybe the day after the event. So because the emotions are going to be raw. But then we changed the T-shirts. Instead of having it blank instead of having no God, no good at the front, we had at the back. And in the front, we had the most loving, the source of all peace, which is God's names, right? And when people see that, automatically, even if they see bearded guys or guys who look a bit different, they see these amazing names. What is this about?
Yeah.
The source of all peace, the most loving. And people really came up to us and we never had a problem. So we changed that public strategy as a result of risk management. Do you see?
Yeah.
So risk management is very important. So you're saying, right, so in this context, it was due to the appalling Manchester attacks. There is there is a potential issue. There is a risk that the public won't appreciate our presence and it may lead to X, Y, and Z. So mitigation is change the way you look and the first emotional impression that you're going to have. And we did that by putting really powerful names on the front of the T-shirt. And that worked. So risk management is best practice way of dealing with your projects and your operations.
So you must have to have a lot of like head screwed on people there to make sure that things don't fall apart.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Is it above
we are growing.
Imran works there, right?
Hussein.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you know
the handsome brother?
Yeah, the only
Mashallah,
reason I know, I remember him, yeah, is for one reason only. One time I went to Speaker's Corner and I saw him standing on a chair and all I thought when I looked at him, I thought, Allahumma barik, this brother has a good set of hair. A good head of hair. because unfortunately a lot of us brothers have to deal with a really bad hairline and Allahumma barik, I don't want to put any iron on his hair, but he hasn't got any issues with his hairline, and I remember thinking I wouldn't mind a bit of a decent hairline like that.
Yeah,
and that's why I remember
he's a
him.
good brother. We love bless him. So yeah, coming back to your point. So I went to Canada because I was invited to give a keynote speech for ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, in Canada. And my topic was on unity, and my topic was on repelling evil by that which is better, which is and that for me was amazing because, you know, the way to understand the Quran is with the unambiguous, clear verses in the Quran, right? That's the first principles. The ambiguous verses in the Quran must always be understood via the first principles. And you have what you call factions and extreme aspects of the religion when people look at the ambiguous verses and they take the ambiguous verses as first principles. And Allah says people who do that are sick in heart. Allah makes it clear. Says we have the clear verses in the Quran that are unambiguous, right?
Like the foundation.
And they're the mother, they're basically the anchor of the book, right? And then you have the ambiguous verses, and people would use those to find out what does it really mean. Let's find these really dodgy interpretations, whatever. And Allah says those people are sick, have a sickness. So Allah is teaching us on how to see His book is by sticking to first principles. So the ayah that Allah talks about when He says good and evil are not the same, repel by that which is better, and between you and someone else there was hatred, it would turn into intimate friendship. So powerful. These are one of the clear, unambiguous verses in the Quran. And the tafsir of this verse is so beautiful. And this teaches how we should be with Muslims and non-Muslims, with everybody, which is understand good and evil are not the same. In other words, good is greater than evil. And repel by that which is better. People think it's repel evil by that which is better. But in the Arabic, the word repel is not followed by a direct object, which means repel anything by that which is better. And the Mufassirin, those who explain the Quran, they said it means repelling by something that's more virtuous and that's more beautiful. So when people come with hate, you come with compassion. When people come with aggression, you come with forgiveness. When people come with foolishness, you come with peace. When people come with all of these things, you respond with something that's more virtuous and more beautiful. And Allah tells us, between two people, if there's hatred, it will turn into intimate friendship. But we don't do that usually. We like to adopt the strategies and the methodologies of the people that hate us, right? Say, for example, some aspects of the media. Very slanderous, talk about things that you said 50,000 years ago, and they judge you by that all the time, all that stuff, right? And we do that to our own fellow Muslims and our own fellow man as well. I said, well, reap what you sow. Where's your Quranic ethic? Reap what you sow. But if you respond with something that is more virtuous and something that's more beautiful, then maybe that hatred that's between two people will turn into intimate friendship. Allah says it, not me. And I think we like to pick and choose from the Quran. So we have these filters already. We have these ideological identity filters when we look at the book of Allah, and we bring to the book of Allah. The Quran doesn't give to us, we give to the Quran. And that's why I have a theory. I spoke about this the other day with a student of knowledge. The Quran is a mirror. It will mirror who you are. So if you're messed up, you're going to find something.
Yeah.
Honestly, because Allah also mentions the Quran, it could be a source of your guidance and misguidance, which is quite powerful. And that's why, you know, the human heart becomes a filter to understand the tradition properly, in my view, you know. Because if you want to find something, you'd find something, you know. People could find excuses for anything.
Just describe how could the Quran misguide you?
Well, it could. If you already have arrogance in your heart, it could just basically, because the Quran, I'll give you an example. The Quran as well is there to break your ego. Like, who are you? Because one of the biggest barriers to divine mercy and guidance is arrogance. Shaitan taught us this, isn't it? He was mutakabbir, right? Because he wanted to be right. He didn't want to be wrong. He wanted to impose. He didn't want to be imposed upon. He wanted to look good. He didn't want to look bad. That's the nature of the nafs, of the ego. So if someone has that big ego, and the Quran, when it tries to remove that ego for you or give you a strategy to remove it, and it increases in your ego, then that's going to increase in your misguidance. For example, Allah says, you are nutfatin min maniyin. You're a nutfa, you're a mingled fluid from a despised fluid. sexual fluid, basically. Now, if you put that sexual fluid on the floor and I give you £1,000 to pick it up, you wouldn't even pick it up, right? But yeah, that's where we came from. But now we think we're somebody. That's where we came from, bro. That should be on your Facebook profile. Yeah, not these pouting pictures, yeah. Fake lips, yeah. All these filters on your face.
Yeah.
Be authentic. Anyway, the point is, but some people think they were catapulted out of their mother's womb with a briefcase and a tie and their bank account and stuff. See, we have this very false sense of individualism in our Western society, which I think is a valid criticism. And what I mean by false individualism is that you think the individual has primacy, meaning that they're the most important thing. Not really, because the individual is actually individual. The individual came as a result of being connected and dependent on nearly an infinite number of different variables in society in order for that individual to be who they are. There's no such thing as this kind of, abstract entity devoid of social obligations and attachments. No, they are as a result of us.
Yeah.
We are them and they are us. And that's a very kind of anti-neoliberal way of looking at the world. But so what? It's reality. Because when you were born, Allah even mentions this in the 22nd chapter of the Quran, talks about the life cycle of the human being. Reflect on you being a baby. You couldn't wipe your backside.
Yeah, it's true.
You couldn't even lift your neck up. You take a newborn baby, put it in a corner of a room for 2 days or 2 weeks without touching it, it will die. Where's your individualism then?
Yeah, it's true.
Show me how individual you are, oh baby. You can't. It's reliant on its mother. Its mother's reliant on people around her. The people around her is reliant on the system that we have created in this society in order for us to function properly. We're all connected, bro.
Yeah.
But we have this kind of false sense of individualism. It's like L'Oreal because I'm worth it. Yeah. Are you the wolf? Yeah. The lone wolf trying to, stab people's back and step on their back just to move forward. So from that point of view, those strategies in the Quran, bro, remind, like even Allah says, "Kullu nafsin da'iqatul maut." Every soul is going to taste death. You're going to become worm buffet. You came from a despised fluid. Who the hell do you think you are? You were a baby. You couldn't even control your own self. You couldn't wipe your own posterior, feed yourself. And now you think you're self-sufficient, which is a form of arrogance and ego.
Yeah.
Now, if after the Quran giving that to you, to teach you about who you really are, to humble you, because through humility, you come closer to God and to the truth. If that doesn't humble you, then He may increase you in misguidance because it just increases your arrogance. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And Allah knows best. Yeah. So, yeah.
I was going to say, should we take a quick break? I need to visit the men's room as well. And then get back onto it. And then I want to carry on. There's so many more things I want to go into. I also really want to go into... I studied a module in my criminology my final year called Myths, Monsters and Legends.
No way.
Yeah, and I really want to go into that module a bit with you, even though I don't remember a lot of it. Sure. Interesting for Sam as well, because I'm not sure if you're aware of Sam's story, but I'd love... It'd be interesting for us to go into it. And also we're going to go into some current events as well. So let's take a quick break. Is that cool?
No worries.
And we're back from our break. How's your break, Sam?
Fine, thank
Get up
you.
To anything much?
I saw you in the toilet.
We had a
very, very brief conversation.
Yeah.
And then I came back here, had a brief conversation with the guys. You came back
with
and
the
then we
lads.
started again.
Yeah, just a bunch of lads in it, really.
Yeah, we're men.
Yeah, bit of lads, couple lads doing a bit of lad talking.
Just a couple of guys, men in the office.
Lads. Yeah,
If you insist.
I'd consider myself a bit of a lad.
How?
We have a bit of an inside joke here, regarding that. In that, well, Sam seems to think that I'm not a lad, don't you, Sam? Let's be honest.
But let's firstly decide what the word lad
Yeah,
means.
you need to start with definitions.
Yeah.
What do you mean by lad, bro?
I'm just a British lad. I'm more British than Sam, and that's it, really. That's where it starts and ends.
A lad for me is someone who's a little bit more alpha male-ish.
Oh, definitely me then.
that's why
Definitely, yeah.
That's why he claims he's...
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I know. You have to sometimes... just
Says
go
the
along.
guy who watches documentaries with his wife and falls asleep. Okay.
Says
Very
the guy
alpha male thing.
Says
to
a guy
do.
who says that he feels like God is hugging him. Yeah, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
very, it's not very lad-like. is
So
it?
you have to go along with it sometimes. He just claims he's a lad. Just sometimes it's easier just to go along with him.
Do you think it makes him feel better about himself?
I'd like to think so a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. It's
He
alright,
needs
bro.
that. So.
Everyone needs that. It's alright.
So Faisal's the lad.
I'm a lad.
Yeah. Keep saying it. Say it a bit stronger than that.
I'm a lad.
There you go.
I eat shepherd's pie at home. Not curries. Yes, as I was saying before the
You
break.
almost make You shouldn't be ashamed of having curry at home.
I don't have curry though. I wouldn't be ashamed if I had
if you
one.
did have a curry at home, you shouldn't.
Yeah,
be
I'm like, yeah, cool, I love curry.
But no, I've heard you say
I'm from a very British household.
That's a British thing to do, right?
What?
Curry.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a ruby.
I've never had a
Ruby Murray.
I don't know about Vindaloo, but if I have a curry, I have a proper one.
A ruby is
I have a proper ruby.
way of saying curry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ruby, you know about
That's
me? Oh,
lad
you're not
talk.
British
That's
lad like
that's
us.
lad talk.
Yeah, it's lad talk.
I taught you that, I think.
Certain, I don't think you did. Curry is a national food here in UK. Did you know that?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
It is. Yeah. Curry is like the national dish here.
I'll probably prefer fish and chips over curry though.
Oh, I love fish and chips.
I saw the world's nominated best fish and chip shop this week
Where was it?
in Bournemouth.
Oh, Harry Ramsey.
No,
Oh.
Oh wow.
but Harry Ramsey's definitely not the best fish and chip.
I know you said Bournemouth. You reminded me of
This
that.
particular place was the winner as the best in the world for a long period of time.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you chase any of their fish and chips?
No, I didn't even go in there. To be honest, looked at it for a second and carried on
Right
going.
now, you got yourself a ruby.
I went and got a sandwich instead.
Oh,
I didn't know.
it's not very.
It's kind of weird because my mom's name is Ruby, so.
Your mum's name is Ruby.
Ruby.
I
think it's because is it
Yeah, so
Ruby Murray.
Ruby Murray sounds like
It rhymes with curry, doesn't
Ruby
it?
Murray curry.
you go
It's
for
Cockney
you
rhyming
go for
slang.
Ruby.
And
Ruby
what's
Murray.
face again? It's Chevy
What's what?
face. It's
Faces
no, you
Face.
know when it's the slang, the Cockney for face.
for face.
Go on, Sam, if you're such a British lad.
Chevy Chase face.
There's loads of little
Yeah.
Apple and pear stairs.
Yeah.
yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Dog and bone
What's that again?
phone.
Phone.
Oh, yeah.
Phone.
Dog and bone phone.
There's
Yeah.
loads. We could
You
talk
could-
about lad culture all day, but let's not.
We
Let's move
could.
on. Let's move on. What were you gonna say?
Someone in my one of my close friends who I lived down the road from at uni. Actually, his dissertation was on lad culture.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it called? Lad culture.
It was called something. It was something. It was studying lad culture and like the negative effects of it, basically, because like what kind of the connotations that come with being a lad, and about how you have to kind of be a certain way, and society frames you to be a certain way in order to be like seen as a lad and like the to be part of one of the boys and that kind of stuff.
And this is what you're pushing for yourself, that you are the lad.
I'm just stating facts, Sam. We can't move around facts.
But
I'm
what
a lad.
defines you as a lad?
Just a bit of a lad.
So you have no evidence to back up.
Just a bit
We
of a
could
lad.
debate all day, but we don't debate here no more.
Yeah, we don't do it no more. My dissertation, in my university, as I was saying, we studied a module called Myths, Monsters, and Legends, and it was taught by.
In criminology, they teach that.
Yeah, we could in our third year we could choose our modules, and that was like one of the options, so I chose
They
it.
teach anything these days.
Yeah, of course.
But it was such a
Third year they teach you about
rubbish
monsters.
degree, honestly. But I'm sure you're aware. Although I actually thought to myself, I'm never going to use anything I ever studied until I read your book. So maybe that was the reason I studied criminology. Anyway, it was taught by a woman who actually claimed that her mum was a witch. Actually, is a witch, and so she. Back then, I had no knowledge of like pretty much anything. But we studied. Do you know much about like folklore? I think you do, because I vaguely remember hearing you speak a bit about it. I think about like some aspects of folklore and stuff. And
I don't know much about
you don't know much about it. One thing I did find really interesting, and this is kind of what I wanted to delve into here, is the fact that in a lot of traditions still, but mainly in the past, there are little regions of areas that are like completely off our radar that we're not aware of, or just we don't look into much. They're not mainstream locations like Dubai, New York, and that kind of stuff. And they have little villages, and in these areas, things are often policed. By the people in the area themselves, so there's no like necessarily law, government, or police, because it's such small areas.
Yes.
And they do a lot of self-policing, and in a lot of these areas they're very what's the word? Like it works. Do you know what I mean? So they'll do stuff. An example is if someone commits a wrong, the way they will fix it is by the entire village coming together and like. The person will have to speak about it and own up to it in front of everybody, and then they like try and counsel them and stuff like that. And so essentially there wasn't really a question, there was just a kind of it was more of an open discussion about folklore and different types of traditions that take place. I was interested to know if you knew about any of them, but you don't really.
That's interesting, because I'm starting to formulate the idea that laws don't change society, it's values that change society.
Right.
Because laws come from values. I think in the Western tradition, it's three main values. One is freedom. One is, I forgot the others. But the point is, I think values are more important than laws.
But I suppose
you can have a law, and if you don't have the right values, you probably break it. You could easily break those laws. But values are the first layer in a society that preserve a society. And that's why you've seen this even from a government point of view, that they have so many laws about things, but it doesn't change much.
Right.
Yeah, I think values change. I think values are important.
But I suppose trying to get everyone to have the same
But that's
values,
very
right?
difficult in a post-secular context, because especially in political liberalism, you're not supposed to have a government that pushing values per se. I mean, in an abstract political theory point of view, you're supposed to...
Is that because that would go against the idea of freedom then?
I don't know what it's supposed to go against, but it's the idea of that you should have a marketplace of... that they shouldn't have a conception of the good life. That's how it's termed in the literature. And you should have a marketplace of values where citizens and individuals, they compete. And the assumption is that because human beings are intrinsically rational, that the most rational and the best values will manifest themselves. But there's a problem with that, because it doesn't take society... It doesn't take other issues into society. It doesn't take other aspects of society into consideration. For example, some people could be more powerful than others. They could use their money and their wealth and their power and the structures in society in better ways than others to manipulate society or to basically push certain agendas and narratives. So, but in an abstract sense, a liberal society or a government that tends itself towards liberalism should not really have a conception of the good life. It should, because of freedom, just allow society to have a marketplace of competing values.
I think I'm officially lost.
Well, basically, my point is that we should have values that are primacy rather than laws, because laws don't change people, values do.
Right, I agree with that. But then it might not work, that's the only thing, because I imagine there's so many different... You almost have to...
Well, it works with your example, because they don't have laws, but they have values.
That's true. But but that's also like... it's because it's such a small, close... It's of one village. I don't know if you could put like... repeat that on a macro.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I'm just thinking aloud here. Sure. But I do think there's something about values coming first rather than laws.
I agree.
Faisal, were you just talking about someone's mum being a witch?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is that related to what you said?
It's just the woman. That's just the woman who taught us that module.
What else did she teach you other than about this?
Witchcraft, wizardry.
Let's break it down.
At
Talk
uni,
to me.
Yeah, that was a module. Yeah, we learned about witchcraft and like.
Was it a core module?
No, it wasn't a core module.
Did it go towards the end of your degree?
It did. I did a essay on it and an exam, I think.
An essay. What was it? Was it
assignment? Yeah, I can't remember what
was it. Was it your report about how many trick or treats you did?
It was I think you could choose like which part of the module you wanted to like do an assignment on, so I chose. I think I ended up choosing like, I think it was about like the policing of like small states. I can't remember exactly. I think we should.
What exactly? Well, no, it's interesting.
But okay, so we won't go into current events yet. Okay, fine.
No. You just
current events. No. Okay.
You just chose a very small segment out of that and brought it up. I think there's probably more interesting things within that.
I was talking about potential. Which anyway, let's go to current events. No, go on.
No, you go on.
So essentially, this module is called Myths, Monsters, and Legends.
It's called what? Sorry.
Myths, Monsters,
and Legends. Okay.
And it was not a core module. So our core modules were stuff like sociology, social psychology, research methods. So how to conduct research in social science. Like so, we did different quantitative and qualitative analysis and that kind of stuff. My end dissertation was actually qualitative. My dissertation was about mass government surveillance and whether Muslims feel like they're more targeted by the government in terms of surveillance than non-Muslims. Okay. And I got a first, alhamdulillah, my research, but it would never actually make it anywhere big other than my little mark, because it was flawed in so many aspects. You'll know it's flawed because the way I conducted the research and whether Muslims feel more targeted than non-Muslims was by doing qualitative analysis by way of but focus groups. And so I had a focus group of Muslims, a focus group of non-Muslims, and just like deconstructed what they said basically. And so that's not a very like kind of smart way of like analysing whether Muslims are actually targeted more or less. But
it's a smart way of analysing the perceptions.
The perceptions, yeah.
But it wasn't the whole point of your topic.
That was so because that's how I conducted research. I ended up like making my question how they feel.
You changed the question to suit your results. That's
no,
really bad.
No, not really. No. I didn't do that. What I did.
Don't get defensive, bro.
No, I didn't. No, what I did is I thought to myself, I don't have the like brain power to figure out how to analyze whether they actually are or not like more being focused on by the government. So what I did is I changed my question to something that I could actually find the answer for, and that is whether that's
decent.
And I also analysed like that whistleblower. I can't remember what his name is now. Snowden. I analysed like his like articles and like what he said, and I just brought mass government surveillance into it and kind of mixed the two. Alhamdulillah, it was half decent anyway.
What did you learn about monsters?
Yeah, so that was the dissertation aspect. Miss Monster Legends. So in that module, bro, what they taught us is taught us different groups and how their religions and that kind of stuff. And so we studied about this one a tribe where they all like get in a circle, and it's some ritual they do is like they like act like they. So what happens is that they get possessed. They start like dancing weirdly. It's proper shaitani stuff, bruv. And they basically believe that the gods are possessing them for those like 10 minutes, and they're like being the god and stuff like that. And the god leaves, and they have like different gods that they worship. And so we're basically studying religions and tribes and that kind of stuff and cults, but ones that aren't like mainstream, ones that are like
shady ones,
right? And so that's what we studied.
Did you discover that there was lots of them?
So many of them.
Loads, isn't there?
Yeah, we studied like the Hand of Fatima and like all that kind of stuff. I just don't remember a lot of it. But yeah, we studied all of that kind of stuff, witchcraft and how people, stuff in Brazil. There's a lot of stuff that happens.
That reminds me of a podcast I was listening to with Dorian Yates.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
Dorian Yates was the 6-time British Mr. Olympia for bodybuilding.
Oh, really?
He's actually a really nice guy. I went to the BAFTAs to see his documentary done by London Real or something.
Okay.
And the podcast was on him taking some drug called euthanasia.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, the euthanasia plant, and it's supposed to open out your, is it pineal gland or one of those?
Gland,
yeah. And they say that's the locus of spirituality or something.
Yeah.
Then you go into different realms, you experience oneness and stuff.
Have
like
you ever listened to Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan?
Yeah, he's a big advocate.
He's got a bit of a filthy mouth, no?
He has.
Not that I'm not judging him. They swear a lot, don't they?
He has. And
MMA guy,
commentator, and he's a big advocate of ayahuasca and like DMT.
That's it, DMT. DMT is I think the synthetic version of euthanasia, I think.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like the same thing.
Yeah. So they have all these theories about the spirit world and stuff like that. But for me, when people study neuroscience or just philosophy of the mind and these kind of things, we don't know much about the brain. I mean, there's this thing called, I don't think I could pronounce it properly. It's pseudocyesis or something. It's fake pregnancy. That women, they can experience fake pregnancy up to 5 months, and they could even feel the baby kicking, and there's no baby.
Really? It's in the mind?
Yeah, just something's happened.
Serious?
Well, is that through a drug?
We don't have a static view on the mind anymore. It's very plastic. You might have heard of this in popular literature. It's called neuroplasticity. Like people who had like strokes, for example, they just through the thinking and the rewiring of their own brain, they've almost cured themselves. They could start walking and speaking properly again, because the brain is very plastic now, very moldable. Yeah, absolutely.
My uncle, he was rendered, he was in out on one side pretty much, but now he's back to like walking. He started walking with a stick. Now he doesn't walk with a stick. It's crazy.
Yeah, so we don't know everything about the brain, and it's just one of those things. I mean, the reason I'm saying this, you couldn't say, oh right, their interpretation of events is the only interpretation of events, right. And that to even claim such a thing would be a huge problem, because we don't know much about the brain from that point of view. And if females can have fake pregnancies to the point where even medical practitioners think they're pregnant as well, then the brain's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
You see my point? So we don't know what this drug really does, to be honest. I don't think there's much, but it's just a discussion point, I guess, and people use it. And for me, it's a sign of people wanting to use these things because they are searching for meaning in life, bro.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, we're living in a post-liberal, post-secular society where, the idea of meaning is not grounded in God anymore. The idea of value is not grounded in God anymore. But we still believe in things like human rights and the value of human life, rightly so. But philosophically, we're not grounding in anything transcendent or solid. It's grounded in human subjectivity and opinion. I think even Jeremy Bentham, the famous philosopher, said human rights, according to this perspective, is nonsense on stilts.
Did he do a study on prison or something?
Prison?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And so, and think about this, bro. If you take God out of the equation, what difference is there between me and a teddy bear? And say you shot the teddy bear in the head, or you shot me in the head. In absence of God, from a philosophical perspective, forget emotions and feelings. What difference is there really between a teddy bear and myself or yourself? You're just a rearrangement of carbon. You're a rearrangement of electrons, rearrangement of the same stuff. Why are we giving that intrinsic value? Oh, but Brother Hamza, we're human. We have feelings. And yeah, but all those things, according to a perspective that denies God, is just electrons whizzing around. It's just neurochemicals firing in your brain that intrinsically don't have any value. Oh, but we're complex. But why do you think complexity should mean it should be more valued? If something is more complex than me, does that mean it's more valuable than me? So the point is, there is no solid argument. It just ends up being just full of subjectivity. Where is your grounding for value?
Yeah.
And that, for me, is a big thing. And people don't think about this much. If they did, they would realize, you know what? If I then deny the metaphysics, deny God, for example, where can I ground my value? Now, if you ground it in just your opinion, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but that becomes subject to you, to your limited opinions and perspectives. There's nothing outside of the limited subjective sphere that you can anchor concepts like meaning and value to. So really, philosophically, there is no difference between yourself and a teddy bear.
Teddy bear.
Philosophically speaking.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the philosophically bit.
Yeah, obviously human beings have
going
emotions.
to a bit of depression.
But even according to that, a naturalistic worldview, which says there's no supernatural, there's no divine, everything can be explained by physical processes, that view doesn't give your life any real meaning or value. Because where is it grounded? It's grounded in what? Fundamentally, it's a saying that you're just a rearrangement of electrons whizzing around in different ways.
That would suck.
So why are you of any real value? In a grand metaphysical sense, you're not. So why are you pretending to be? At least follow through with the philosophical implications of your worldview. But they don't. That's why I respect the old atheists more, like Nietzsche and Arthur Schopenhauer, because they were honest. They followed through with the implications of their beliefs. Like Nietzsche said, if God dies in our hearts, in Europe's heart, or we deny God from that point of view, the only thing you can ground your values is in yourself. And you have to become God from that point of view. But yet it becomes very subjective because everyone may have different values and you have to compete. Might is right, yeah? Or Arthur Schopenhauer is a bit more of a pessimist. He said he'd rather the world not existed. He said he had absolutely no meaning.
Yeah.
You see my point? So he followed through with the logical implications of his worldview. But today's kind of evangelical, philosophical type atheists, they don't follow through. You know, we claim these amazing things like human rights and value of life, which is great. And it's part of our innate nature, absolutely, that God gave us to believe in these things. But philosophically, in a naturalistic sense, that everything can be explained by physical processes and there's no divine, no supernatural, then how can you give it any basis? The base is just a meaningless, valueless electron whizzing around. Or physical processes that have no intrinsic value or meaning, causally connected in some random way. Why does that give us value? And I did this at Leicester University, I believe, and one atheist lady, she agreed. She said, "You're right. I have to admit now, it's subjective." I said, "Thank you, you're honest."
Yeah, a lot of it does come down to sincerity, I suppose, as well. Like being honest with yourself when you're like hearing kind of the arguments and that, and like because like you said, ego and arrogance comes into a lot of it. When it comes to trying to defend your stance, and even it comes with Muslims, even Muslims that you see, especially like I said, when you go to Speaker's Corner, you see a lot of like, when someone is passionate about something, or when they know, or when they think that something is right, they'll try and defend it, and a lot of ego and arrogance naturally comes into
That's true.
it.
How many times have you heard someone say, "What did you mean by that?" That for me, if someone asks me, "What did you mean by that?" and they say it sincerely, I've fallen in love with that person. Like, you genuinely want to know who I am, and you're not attaching yourself to my words. You're attaching yourself to my meaning.
Yeah.
Which is far more profound, because words are vehicles to meaning. They're trying to go to the essence of what I'm trying to say, meaning they really want to connect. But when have you heard that? In a debate or in a discussion? It shows our lack. As Muslims, we, generally speaking, segments of the Muslim community need a lot of intellectual and spiritual maturity. I've seen that with my life. Like, if you just look at my journey, I'm like, well, who the hell was this guy? And it's because we just need more of that maturity to connect. You know, it's so important.
Should we go into some current events? Would you like to go into some current events?
Yeah, let's do it. Although I'm not much of a political animal, but
we try and save politics anyway.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the politics up, keep it a bit light-hearted.
Cool, let's do this.
Let's go into some current events. Good one.
Red one.
How's the game, guys?
All good. Alhamdulillah.
It's a really interesting discussion. I'm enjoying listening to it. Laughing occasionally.
So last week we did it was just me and Red again, and so bro, we just did an episode with me and Red, and I explained on the podcast, you know, that the Hamza and Sam were feeling a bit unwell, etc, etc. And what I must have done is I must have been trying to, like, because I know how good the podcast is when you're here, I must have tried to, like, I must have been a bit, like, negative about it. Like, oh, guys, you know, I know this podcast today might suck, but, you know, I still want to get an episode out, blah, blah, blah. And I might have said, I don't realise this, but I might have said it a few times. And so, like, some of the comments were like, what, stop putting, like, these episodes down, like, they're still great episodes, blah, blah, blah. To the point where I had one brother call me, and he was like, oh, bro, listen to the podcast, love it, blah, blah. It's not bad. Why did you keep saying that? And I don't even remember keep saying that, but I'm going to stop saying that now if there is another podcast episode where, you know, we have to do it alone, which is so rare. We've done 33 episodes and only 2 of them have been without you. And what it reminded me of when I was in high school.
I had a song playing in my head after you just said that.
Really?
Yeah.
What it reminded me of is when I was in high school, one guy, I remember, I think I was a bit chubby or something. I remember saying to, like, one of my friends, I was like, oh man,
nothing's changed then.
I remember saying to my, this guy's savage. I remember
you're too sensitive. I thought you were a lad.
I'm a lad. I must have said that to one of my friends. I was like, oh man, I feel a bit chubby or something. I think we're changing or something. And he said, bro, you're not. Why do you keep saying that? And he said, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, you know, when a girl says, oh, I'm fat, I'm fat.
I was going to say that.
Even though, like, she's not. And you just feel like saying, shut up, man. Like,
are you being sexist there?
Sorry?
You just otherize females now.
No, I don't think so.
You just say that all girls are like that. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying this is the example of the friend that
you just otherize. You've dehumanized the other gender, bro.
I'm saying,
on behalf of females, I'm really offended.
I'm saying, someone's a bit sensitive. No, I'm saying.
I'm just joking. I'm just having a go at you.
I'm also saying what the guy said to me. So he said to me, do you know when, like, a girl will say, oh, I'm fat, and you know she's not. You feel like saying, no, you're not. Like, stop being so, like, it's annoying. And so I assume that the audience must be annoyed by me being like, oh, this episode sucks, guys, but we're still putting one out. So I'm not going to say that anymore. That was the point.
So that was a long apology.
Yeah.
Is that he always apologise?
I do. I'm really don't about anything I do, to be honest.
Current events, man.
You seem like a very cute, sensitive guy, bro.
Yeah, he's not allowed.
But
that's not very manly thing to
you
say.
know it's genuine. Like, at least when he does it, you know it's fully genuine.
Yeah.
He goes into
He's
it.
genuine.
I can see why his wife would love him.
Yeah.
Well, she actually, I'm happy she doesn't listen to his podcast, because if she listened to his podcast and, like, she heard Hamza
Tzortzis, a liar.
Hamza Tzortzis saying, oh, you're a really cute guy, she'd be like, man up. I really manly my wife, so now that I know, because I know she doesn't listen to podcasts, I can be myself a bit. Current events.
Yeah, let's move on to that.
Alright, let's talk about
I feel like I'm
something
really
that's happened
proving my
in the
manliness
US.
now.
So in the US of A, there was a student that was charged after her smearing bodily fluids over her roommate's bag to get rid of her.
Really?
Yeah, it's mad. So it's basically her roommate was black and she was essentially white, and
There's a race attack.
she did things like so her message on Facebook. She's stupid as well. She went and bragged about it on Facebook. That's how she got caught out, and now she's been charged and thrown out of the university.
When you say bodily fluids, I mean, don't go into too much detail, but you mean...
I'm assuming... I'm just going to assume it's pee. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really want to go into
some sort of bodily fluids.
Yeah, on Facebook, she said she put out a message saying, finally did it to your girl, got rid of her roommate, after 1.5 months of spitting in her coconut oil, putting moldy clam dip in her lotions, and putting her toothbrush in places where the sun don't shine, and so much more, I could finally say goodbye to Jamaican Barbie. Like, how does that even come about?
They made that. She put that on Facebook.
And she put that on Facebook.
That's not very
bragging
clever, is
about
it?
And that's actually got caught out as well. So she's been charged with felony bigotry charge. She's been charged.
How old is this person?
She's 18.
Wow, man.
So she's of some maturity, or like of an age that, you know.
She's an out-and-out racist, is she?
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
Her actions say so.
Pretty savage, isn't it?
It is. Like, I don't know. To me, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Is she being charged with something? Is she?
Yes. So felony bigotry charge.
Is she
I don't know what that entails, but
yeah.
Interesting.
it's interesting. It's kind of.
That's killed the mood.
Yeah.
What's the next current event?
Listen, you're gonna be flying out soon.
Yes, inshallah.
There were like these airline awards that's been happening recently.
Did Monarch Airlines win any awards?
Who's your favorite airline to fly with?
No, I don't know about my favorite, but I heard that Emirates are really good.
Okay.
So
Sam?
Virgin.
Okay, cool. Are you a flyer? Are you a high flyer?
Yeah, I like Malaysian Airlines. Not that I've used them frequently, but because they have places where you could pray standing.
Yeah.
And they're really cool like that. And they go out the way to help you. So there's a curtain that you close. I remember when I went to Australia, I think I did all 5 salah standing.
No way.
On Malaysia Airlines.
how's Australia? Cool. How's the flight?
Jet lag, it gets
Really?
me bad, yeah.
I really wanna go
Basically,
Australia.
the best airline in the world right now is Air New Zealand.
Really?
No
yeah,
way.
Yeah. There's a top 10. The only one that you guys mentioned was Virgin Atlantic was in top 10. Otherwise, Emirates, Etihad, they don't even come close. Top 10 is Air New Zealand, Qantas, Singapore Airlines, Virgin Australia, Virgin Atlantic. Oh wait, Etihad's in top 10 as well. Sorry, 6. All Nippon Airways. I've never even heard of that. Korean Air, Cathay Pacific, and Japan Airlines.
Wow.
In terms of aviation and technology, and I'm guessing I don't know, they use like 13 criteria to like determine who would be the top.
On Malaysia Airlines, do they do like a dua at the beginning as well? They do that with Royal Brunei. They do like a dua in Arabic. Yeah,
They do it with Emirates as well.
Yeah, quite a few airlines. have got
Emirates,
that.
Oh, really?
Qatar, yeah.
Nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's nice to start your journey like that, isn't it?
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah.
Brunei is like a small island, right? Or is it?
Royal Brunei is, yeah, I don't know, but the air hostesses were wearing like they covered their hair, and they let me pray standing. They didn't say anything, so
And the male air stewardesses are huge.
really,
What was that?
Massive, bro. We had a bodybuilder. We kept complimenting his muscles. It was,
He didn't like it.
he did like
Yeah,
that.
that's such a lad thing to do.
Yeah,
isn't
no.
it?
Yeah.
To be fair, we were taken back by this
Yeah,
guy's
me and Sam.
size.
It was
and
both of us. Yeah.
It was definitely. I was involved.
Yeah,
involved.
Sam was involved. We were like being surprised by his air hostess, and what was it? You that did you mention it to me? You were like, oh,
You mentioned it to me.
Well, we can.
Yeah, when
You
he
have guns, yeah?
he had big guns.
So massive.
When he gave Faisal his water, he put his arm in front of us, and we just like, yeah. I haven't seen someone serving water with such huge muscles. To be
And he was so cool, calm, collected, right?
Huge.
Bear in mind, he was fully like he was wearing a shirt and everything. You see him popping out. And we said to him, I said, bro, how many times did you go to gym?
Where
And
was he from? What was his background?
I think Malaysian or something.
Malaysian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said.
That added to it because you don't often see sort of.
Yeah, that's true. But he was, yeah. And I said to him, bro, how often do you work out? And this is what made it even worse because he just smirked and went, whenever I can. What? I try to go to gym 4 times a week. I don't look like that. Yeah. So it's like they got some big old boys.
Something's in the water, yeah?
Yeah,
For sure.
In Brunei.
Evening Standard released an article about mental health and how running. So there was a study that surveyed over 13,000 people over 12 months who started off the year with mental health issues, ran for the whole year, and over 75% of them actually said that the running helped with their mental health. So that's...
Yeah, it increases serotonin levels, I think, in the brain.
which is-
You know what? I really advise people to exercise in the winter. Something happens to me in the winter as well.
same.
It's either seasonal associated depression or it's lack of vitamin D. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to find out and it's something that I know is not me. Something's happening. Yeah, I'm not saying it's spooky, but I'm like, in the summer, I could be awake from 4 a.m, go to bed at midnight, and probably last 4 hours a day, or sleep, that is.
Okay.
But in the winter, something terribly, something happens to me.
I really enjoy it. I'm such a winter. I don't know. I'm an autumn baby. Probably doesn't have anything to do with why I like winter so much. But
oh, you like winters?
I love winters. Really winters.
I like winters in terms of just the feeling of people is different. Yeah, maybe it's the festive season. People are really nice, and you gotta get cozy and have your hot chocolate. It's fine. I get that. I'm talking about my physiology.
Right.
Yeah, but you're right. It's leaving.
Quite cool on you, really deep down.
Absolutely.
I actually enjoy running a lot in winter. I feel like I can run better in winter.
Yeah, but that's why I'm suggesting you should exercise in the mornings and in the evenings if you can.
Are you a runner?
Even if. Well, yes and no. What I like doing now is, for example, 8 to 10 minutes on the cross trainer, but really good pace, and then go straight to the rowing machine, 8 to 10 minutes, and straight to the cycle. So you do about half an hour. And if you change your type of cardio exercises every 10 minutes, it's better for fat burning, better fitness as well.
Really?
Yeah, because using different energy pathways and stuff, all that, correct? Yeah. So it's a better way of doing it, I think. So you could run for half an hour. I would probably argue that doing the same high intensity, but in 10-minute segments without any rest on different type of cardio machines is probably better for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
From a fitness point
and if
of
you're
view.
running on like flat land, it's better if you actually find terrain when you're going up and down, so have different intensities.
And as you get older, you got to be careful about your joints,
Yeah.
joints and your knees and this, that, and the other. So things like cross trainer, cycling, and rowing machine is very good on your joints. So
also, I recommend running on grass. Like
really?
Yeah. Running on concrete is very
no,
bad
you
for your
shouldn't.
joints.
Yeah, I would recommend running barefoot.
You would?
Yeah, there've been studies shown that if you had like ankle or joint problems, running barefoot just naturally helps you.
Sam's more of a boxer, aren't you, Sam?
No, I'm not more of a boxer at all.
You like to hit the pads though, don't you, Sam?
Occasionally we'll hit a pad, yeah.
He's a pad hitter for cardio.
You don't do cardio. He's very anti-cardio.
I'm not anti-cardio. I just
why?
You don't do it. Do
Well,
you?
he was out of breath just walking the stairs.
He
Bro.
doesn't do cardio. He just lifts heavy weights all the time.
I'm not anti-cardio. I'm just not good at. I need to do it.
Let me give you some advice, right?
Do cardio.
And this is for the people who love bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is the most stupidest art. It's not even a sport, with respect.
Coming from an ex-bodybuilder.
Absolutely. So I wore the t-shirt, right?
Okay.
Now,
What size was it?
I was
Sam, you don't often say
I was
anything
at one
funny.
point 117 kilos.
Wow.
I was benching 170. Yeah,
Wow.
and that was no PEDs. Yeah, no performance enhancing drugs.
How tall are you?
About 5'10".
Not to be mistaken for PAD, which is something that you use to argue against science.
Well, I don't argue against science. I'm just showing what science is and what the Darwinian mechanism. It's probabilistic, has assumptions based, and it has disputes, but it doesn't mean you reject it. We spoke about that already. Yeah.
Come on, we moved on from that. Come on.
Anyway, let's flow now.
carry
Yeah.
on. I'm sorry
So
about him.
bodybuilding, right? I want you guys to think about bodybuilding, right? Is bodybuilding fitness and a sport? For me, I'm sorry, I call it a sport. It's a sport and an art. You may be strong, right? You may be able to bench 170 kilos, move some weight from A to B. But are you functionally fit? If you can't walk the stairs, if you can't run a bit, if you can't, for example, do different compound movements in a dynamic way, for me, I wouldn't really consider you being fit. You may look aesthetically pleasing. You have some more water in your muscles. We call them water babies, yeah? You may look like a water baby, but are you fit? And sometimes we have to just reassess about our own personal goals. What are you doing it for? If it's just to look good, then you're just a vain fool, frankly. No offense, bro. But you are gorgeous, mashallah. Tabarakallah. Allahumma barik lahu. So, now, for me, it tended to being just expressing myself. You know, sometimes going to the gym at 6 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, just really pushing the weight for an hour and going really crazy and maxing out the reps. And just, for me, it was a de-stressor. But then after you had this kind of like mental disease of, am I big enough? Am I getting bigger? And, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, am I strong enough? And all of these things. But the goal wasn't what I would call an elevated goal, which was, am I fit enough? Yeah. So when I stopped that, I went back into boxing and martial arts type of training because my background was Wing Chun and boxing, nice. Yeah. So when you start doing the high intensity training, the press ups, push ups, the burpees, even the kettlebells, the ropes, all of that stuff, I'm fitter than I was when I was in my 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see my point, bro? Don't get me wrong. Not all bodybuilders are vain. Of course not. It's an expression of the body. It's fit from the point of view that you get strong. It's good for your tendons.
Mashallah, you're still popping out your jumper.
It's actually good for your heart. But the thing is, though, a lot of our brothers, they do it for the wrong reasons, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we should have more of a fitter lifestyle to be more functionally fit, be able to run, catch the bus, save people in the street.
Have you met Yusha Evans?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, he's big on martial arts. He teaches.
You know how humble this brother is, right? I was in Minnesota many years ago, and he's a very popular speaker and stuff.
Yes.
He sat there and he personally filmed my lecture.
Really? SubhanAllah.
You don't get speakers doing that to other speakers, bro, who are on the circuit, yeah. So man, I bless that brother. Very, very humble.
He teaches. He's got martial arts academy in America. You know that?
No, I forgot what he does again.
Is
it MMA now? Or
no, he doesn't do MMA.
Taekwondo, wasn't it?
He's a black. I won't do it justice. But if you want to maybe listen to Freshly Guided Yusha Evans, he explains it all on the episode.
Yeah, do that.
But are you into jiu-jitsu?
I do like the art, but I haven't dealt with it personally. But I think it's.
I really want to get into jiu-jitsu,
something
man.
very. Well, we should. It's like chess.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan of the sweet science, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about boxing that it's like a it's like a
technical?
storm. A storm looks chaotic and it looks random and it's just like it's destructive. But if you break it down to another layer of perception, a storm is basically based on the ordered universe, the laws of the universe. And boxing is very similar. It may look really silly, but shifts in your footwork, in your shoulder, slight angle changes everything. And people don't know how much IQ, fighting IQ, you need to be a really good boxer. And it's not just punching a bag, and it's not just like throwing a jab and a right hand. It's when, and it's the timing, it's the rhythm, it's the angles, it's the speed, it's the cadence of everything you're doing, it's the shift of angles, it's thinking, if I do this, what kind of gaps I'm going to open out. It's about setting someone up. It's just a brilliant science, man.
Yeah, you can see it's technical.
You used to box when you were younger.
I knew you were going to. Well, I knew when you looked at me, I knew you was going to bring it up.
You were in a boxing club as well, weren't you? So you must have learnt about that.
You do amateur boxing?
Yeah.
You used to spar and everything, yeah.
Move on, yeah.
You sparred?
So the reason Sam is bullying me again is because I was telling the story recently about my first ever sparring session, and I was trying to. My dad, who was really against me boxing, it's the first time he's ever come to pick me up, and so they asked me, "Do you want to go into the ring and do like a sparring session?" I was like, "Yeah," and they put me against like a really good a guy who's been sparring for a long time, a bigger boy, and as I get into the ring, I look to the right, and my dad, through the little circle, I see him like turn up, and so he's waiting outside, and he can just see there's like little circle window he's looking through. It's my first time sparring. I think I've really got to impress him, and so the round starts, and like I'm just like unleashing on this guy, and he literally just jabs me one time in the nose, and I drop.
Yeah.
So
it is.
You got up, didn't you?
I got up, used ropes a bit, got up, and
you do learn a lot about yourself.
Like it removes your ego. Because at some point
that situation would have removed your ego, yeah.
Well,
my ego is gone.
Boxing training.
Was there tears? Was there tears?
Maybe because when you hit your nose, you know that water comes down your eyes, but not emotionally attached to his nose.
You weren't making crying sounds. Be honest.
No, genuinely, I wasn't. I was very embarrassed, but alhamdulillah, I dealt with it like a true lad does.
Good lad.
In true lad form.
Went home with his dad.
Yeah.
Boxing training is intense. It's very intense.
It's interesting that you mentioned it. Like, it opens up a whole new array of like neural pathways for you. So like, so did you study Bruce Lee before you studied Wing Chun, or the other way around?
I got introduced to, I think it was like same time. I was into Bruce Lee. I was into Wing Chun first, I think, and from Wing Chun, I got introduced to Bruce Lee, and then I bought his books and the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and having nowhere as a way and having no limitation as a limitation, and he was well ahead of his game. I think he's the founder of MMA, to be honest, philosophically. Yeah, he's definitely the founder of MMA from a philosophical point of view. But his philosophy was very interesting as well, about self-expression and relationships, and the thing I mentioned earlier about being in relation to other people. That's when you know who you really are, because your personality comes out when you're in relation to something other than yourself. So that's from Bruce Lee, actually, because he had like an existential type of philosophy as well. And he's not, people don't read him like that. They don't read his philosophy. They read his, his movies or his stuff like that. But he was well ahead of his time from a martial arts point of view, and it was brilliant. And so my Wing Chun journey started when I was 14 or 15, I think. Okay. So, and I found Wing Chun very simple. See, Wing Chun was also philosophy. It was direct. The straightest line is the quickest line. the economy of motion. That's why you block and punch at the same time. You don't block and then you punch, and use the energy against them. So it's economy of motion, right? So sort of blocking by like, the typical karate blocks, like an iron bar. It's not like this. Basically, you occupy the space. Like Paksao is like trapping. You don't actually hit the arm. You just occupy that area. And the way you've angled your arm, basically, you just block it. Like even the Tansao, if you're going to block a hook, for example, you won't just block it like this. What you do is like the way it's angled, it deflects everything. Divert it. Then you just use the energy against them, and then you punch them at the same time.
It's so difficult. I do Thai boxing. So I've been doing Muay Thai for a while now. It's the complete opposite of what we do.
Thai boxers can't box here. Just letting you know.
Huh?
Thai boxers can't box.
But
the boxers always cuss down Thai boxers and kickboxers. Thai boxing, they just don't know how to box.
Yeah. Red, you do Thai boxing, you can't box.
But they said Thai boxing, bro. Traditional Thai boxing, they say, is the best martial art. Do you know why? Because traditional Thai boxing, you probably know this better than I do, they basically make the elbows, forearms, and shins into solid iron. And so what they're saying is, if someone is conditioned like that, you try and get him to an arm bar, he will break your face with his foot or his arm. So it's like they have literally 4 weapons. So the traditional Thai boxing is very, very aggressive. Very aggressive.
I'm not like over here. It's not really like, it's not very proper. If you go to Thailand and look into,
you see, bamboo sticks, they just roll them over the shins over years. Wow. Obviously, the brothers who pray, usually we get this kind of kalaus on our left foot, isn't it? A lot of brothers get it, it's this little bump. And if you touch it, you can't feel anything. And that's over the years of praying and putting pressure on a certain area all the time. And then you can't feel it anymore. If someone were to like stab that area, I wouldn't feel it, or you wouldn't feel it. And that's what they do. It's just conditioning the body over certain years that their arms and their shins now become literally weapons.
It's ridiculous. My dad used to. So my dad grew up in like a small town in Bangladesh, and he's a brown belt in karate, and his friend studied Muay Thai, and now he holds the world record for breaking 3 MLB league bats.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he's broken all 3 of them. His name's Mac Yuri. And it's nuts, because you see the training that he does. He's called Thundershin. So like he's just been, he was kicking I don't know what breed of palm tree, but he just kicked that pretty much.
But the thing with martial arts, the good thing is it doesn't make you more violent if you do it properly. It actually makes you peaceful, because you learn about your own body and what it can do. So if there's a confrontation, what you usually do is run away, or you mobilize a situation where you wouldn't use violence. Because like I saw this with a lot of boxing kids, especially in East London. One of the lads sometimes would like to get into a bit of a balmy, a bit of an argument. But when they go through boxing, they're very reluctant into engage in any physical violence at all, because they know their own power now. Because a good boxer, with one punch, just it's game over, right? So it teaches you discipline and self-awareness. Self-control, and that's what it should do. It shouldn't make you more violent, obviously. And we're Muslim, we don't like violence, right?
Yep. But if he has to be Azerbaijan, call up my friend Hamza. Next current event.
Who's that?
You don't know him. Let's current event. Is that all the current events?
It was it all took me to my next piece, which was basically well, not my next piece, but so Mike Tyson opened up to GQ about what how far he came, and he basically said everything that he's ever done in his life came down to his inner monologue. So it kind of comes down to the mental health part of what I was saying earlier as well. So he basically said visualizing everything in his mind before it's happened, and taking that aim, literally like sitting there just thinking about it happening, was what led to him
winning,
gaining all of his success. So
I've seen that with a lot of successful people, the art of visualization. It's a very stoic thing to do. Like in stoic philosophy, they also say that you should visualize negativity. Like visualize the worst outcome. Once you've experienced it, now you're emotionally ready to deal with it. So it's easier way to deal with life by visualizing even the worst case scenario, and then you realize I do that a lot.
Bro, you actually break down a situation and visualize it as negatively as you can.
No, I would try and visualize what would be the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
And then I look at it thinking, it's not that bad, is it? Right? And you see it as it is, and then after you be able to move forward. But also you should also try and visualize what you want to achieve as well as best as possible. But visualization is not enough, bro. You have to take the steps towards ensuring that what you visualize comes into fruition. Yeah.
I think something similar happens in the Navy SEAL training. They go through a thing called Hell Week in the training, and what it is they put the trainees through like the worst week of their lives. Where you know, there's one, for example, part of Hell Week where I believe all the soldiers are in the water, freezing cold water, in like some freezing cold area in America, and they have to just stay completely still and mute for like
hours,
something like that overnight. So like the point where it's the lowest temperature and stuff like that. And so that's like part. So I think the aim in Hell Week is to like put them through such rigorous and like rough settings so that they can handle like anything. I remember I saw like a quick YouTube video or someone explaining.
But with a lot of these things, I think it's always good to, the way to develop that inner monologue, right, is you just have to have a daily routine.
Yeah.
So, but like recently at work, we want to change the culture, so we call it what's your morning routine. Like if you tell me your morning, I could tell you your week, I could tell you your year, I could tell you your decade, the next 10 years. And mornings are so important. And a lot of people say this anyway. So we tried to say, right, what kind of morning should we have? So we said, try and endeavor to wake up, obviously for Fajr, but to do it in the masjid. And when you do the masjid, after praying Fajr, make sure you basically read some Quran. Do your morning adhkar in the morning and evening, obviously. Do the morning adhkar. When you come back home, do some exercise, do some movement. When you finish your exercise, try and connect with a human being. Mom, dad, parents, text, email someone nice, whatever. And not only that, after connecting with a human being, what you should try and do is basically eat the frog. Eat the frog is a saying of do that action that's you've been pushing to the side. And so when you do all of these things, and then also the other thing was trying to learn something new. So if you do that by 10 a.m., your day is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be such a productive day. And a lot of these things are actually part of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like after Fajr, he would connect with his Sahaba and they would ask him about dreams interpretations, and he would try to connect with them and give the interpretation of the dreams, all of these things. So if you have ibadah in the morning, you're in the masjid, you do your Quran, you do your tadabbur of Quran, reflecting on the Quran, you do your dhikr, your adhkar, your du'as, then you go home, you eat the frog, do that difficult action that you've been putting to the side, you connect with another human being, you do some exercise. Some people don't even do that in a week.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that every morning, or at least aspiring, and we should all try and aspire to have those type of mornings. If you do those type of mornings, your whole day is going to be so successful. And you know what? The interesting thing is, when you look at successful people, and what they have those habits, those morning habits. That wake up 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning. They have a certain morning routine that they do that's constant. And if they've done all of that by 10 a.m., wow, what kind of day are you going to have? Do you see my point?
Yeah.
So, and some of us, we have the culture of just going to bed after Fajr and then basically running out and then of bed, and it's like 11 already or 12 and your day's gone. It's not going to be productive. Our spiritual masters, the pious predecessors, they would say that they would not consider someone if they went to bed after Fajr. Yeah, they wouldn't consider them. Obviously, in the UK it's a bit different because summer timings and stuff like that. In the Arab world, it was generally consistent. But the point is, there was something in there. It was a barakah time. And if you look at other cultures and spiritual traditions, take the Chinese tradition. Even to this day, if you go to some local parks where Chinese people live, you see the old Chinese people specifically because they're more traditional. They're there at Fajr time at 5 in the morning, doing their sword training, their Tai Chi, the bouncing of the Qigong ball or whatever, right? They're doing their Qigong. And there's something about the morning, that is cross-cultural and it transcends different.
Same as in India with the Hindus, they all go to the temple first thing in the morning. It's something about that. Just as the light breaks, a lot of people get up with when the day gets up, when the sun comes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do it obviously for Fajr and then obviously the time after Fajr.
Yeah, of course.
It's throughout the cultures and religions. It's a very special time, isn't it?
Absolutely. And this emulates somewhat in some way the routine of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so if you've done all of that by say 10 a.m., imagine the rest of your day. And some of the most successful CEOs and people who run businesses and organizations and want to become leaders and inspire other people, that's what they do. They have this phenomenal routines. They'll be up at like 4:35 in the morning. They've already exercised. They've done either meditation or spiritual stuff. They've connected with a human being. They've done so many different things. This guy that I follow, I forgot his name now. Jocko, yeah, he's an ex-Marine, and he's got this philosophy of extreme ownership, and I actually agree with him. Extreme ownership is that you take responsibility for the failures and the successes, and the organization is you, and you are the organization. So their failures are your failures. Just like the Prophet said, Al-mu'minu miratul mu'min, the believer is a mirror of another believer. When you see a blemish in the mirror, you don't wipe the mirror, you wipe yourself. You own the blemish, you own the mistakes, and you own the successes. So that means you take so much responsibility that you're making everyone grow, right? Like, for example, as a CEO, you're not going to say to someone, you're doing this wrong. Rather, you go and sit with him and say, right, this is how you do it right. Or you take an extreme ownership, and that's really powerful of elevating people and all of this stuff. So this guy wakes up every day, even on Christmas Day, I believe, at 4:30 in the morning, every single day. And at 4:30 in the morning, what this guy does, he basically exercises into around 6 in the morning. Crazy workouts, right? Then he goes for a swim. Then he does his podcast until about 11 or 12 p.m. And he hasn't eaten by then. He's just had like a handful of nuts. And his first meal was at lunchtime. He takes pictures. If you follow him on Twitter, he takes pictures.
What's his name?
Jocko. I forgot his second name. I think that's his second name.
Okay.
But if you type in extreme ownership Jocko,
okay, fine.
He does his own tea as well. He's a brand of tea. Now, I don't know him very well, but judging by his kind of ideological stance, I may not agree with everything he says, obviously. But his leadership, his philosophy on leadership is phenomenal. I think it's really powerful that it'd be great to adopt. So you see yourself, for example, take your podcast as an example. You don't say it as the other. You are the podcast, and the podcast is you. So any failings or successes you own automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't own it from an egocentric point of view. You do it because it is you.
Yeah.
And that's the point. So, even subtle things like where to put the hat, where to put the water, it's like, where would you put your shirt? Where would you put your tie? Where would you, put your whatever, right? So, and any failings, you take them as your own failings. Right. And therefore, when someone has their own failings, they do everything they can to improve themselves. So improving yourself would be really improving the podcast, and improving the podcast would be improving yourself.
Yeah, very true.
Which is really powerful. And extreme ownership is it does drain you psychologically, because you become the organization, the organization becomes you. Right? But if you create that mindset within your organization, even if it's in your marketing team or within the podcast, whatever the case may be, I'm telling you, everything would change. Even your language would change. You wouldn't say, oh, our business. You wouldn't say the name. You would say our team. And you wouldn't say you, right? You would say we. And and you wouldn't blame ever. You wouldn't point the finger, because if something has gone wrong, that's just a reflection on you, because you haven't done what it takes to actually elevate other people and ensure that everyone's failings turn into successes. And you haven't had this empowerment philosophy of, right, let me show you how it's done in order to solve the problem and people move forward. So extreme ownership is brilliant. It's brilliant. I think it works, but it can get a bit emotional, but I think it's very powerful. You don't see other people and the organization or the team as an external entity. You've internalized it all. And if you do it in the less, if you do it with as less ego as possible, then you'll have a successful team and organization. And if you could imbibe that in people, that, I am, what are you called again?
Freshly grounded.
Sorry, I do apologize. I am freshly grounded, and freshly grounded is me. Yeah?
Yeah.
If everyone sees that, then nothing's ever going to go wrong. And if it goes wrong, you're going to still progress and move forward, inshallah. But many organizations fail because they don't have that philosophy. And that's because leadership doesn't empower them that way, and they don't follow that position of saying, you know what, there's a big failing here, I'm going to sort out, I'm going to show how it's done first, empower you so you could do it again in the future. And the reason I've got my hands dirty from this point of view is because I am the organization. The organization is me. I am you and you are me. Al-mu'minu mirat al-mu'min. We are mirrors of one another. If there's a blemish in the mirror, I ain't wiping the blemish, I'm wiping myself. So I'm doing what it takes to solve the issue and the problem. So you should try to adopt that. Maybe you already do it. That's why you're so successful, mashallah.
No, there's a long way to go. Alhamdulillah. Hamza Tzortzis Debating Athiests. I hope I'm doing that right. Honestly, we could go on for hours. It's been so amazing, so beneficial having you on the podcast. Thank you so much. Jazakallah
It's been a
khair.
pleasure. Jazakallah khair.
May Allah bless you. May Allah put barakah in what you do.
Ameen.
Ameen.
You
And
too.
give you success in this life and the next.
Ameen.
Please do come back sometime if you enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was great. It was like talking at home and being in the living room
And that's the vibe we wanted to create.
chilling with the guys. You know.
With the lads. With the lads. This episode's come out every Friday, so this will be out tomorrow, inshallah,
Brilliant.
on podcast app and on YouTube. Jazakallah khair again. And this has been episode 33. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.